I can't believe I was muted. I was doing such good banter. I was muted the whole time. Well, hello everyone. Shall I redo all that banter? Goodness me, I don't know. It was so off the cuff. It was so... Of course I was muted. Just assume that based on whatever you've heard from me before, that opening banter that was muted was 12 out of 10, at least. I was talking... I'll give you the gist. It went, you know, this is like the tribute of the greatest banter of all time. I was saying I might add a new t-shirt to the merch store for plant-based meat is healthier than meat. And I might also add my For How Long Has Frederick Leroy Avoided ChrisBryant.com t-shirt. So there's the count. That's where we're at. 1 year, 8 months, 20 days, and nearly 15 hours. And, you know, actually, good. You unmuted me, Oppenheimer. I appreciate that. I had an awkward realisation when it was mine and Freddie's 1 year anniversary. 1 year since he first dodged my challenge for a debate on LinkedIn comments. So that several subsequent challenges, and then probably around about a year since he's now blocked me. A little bit more, I guess. Which is a real shame. I don't think I'll ever get some engagement from this guy now. But I wanted to write something on LinkedIn when it was the 1 year anniversary, 1 year since Freddie Leroy first ran from a debate. And I had the good realisation that I'm probably never going to be able to do that on the anniversary because it actually falls on my wife's birthday. So I know there's, you know, some women might not be happy about their husbands posting to their meat industry nemesis when they could instead be posting about their birthday. Maybe there's maybe there's different platforms for different streams here. But maybe I can do the wife's birthday post on Instagram and then still do my Freddie Leroy anniversary post on LinkedIn. Maybe that's the way to. Maybe that's the way to go. I mean, I think that if she were to clock this in any case, she could sort of count backwards from here and realise you were fucking challenging Freddie Leroy to a debate on my birthday. So, yeah, don't tell the missus on that one. I got the din up. This is nothing in particular, but this is my favourite place to find people for all sorts of conversations because it's very much tapped into my kind of interests, but also from multiple different perspectives. LinkedIn's very good at giving you and showing you stuff that you're going to disagree with and want to argue with. I think it rewards commenting a lot, and so if you get dragged into comment wars. Although, having said that, this person does various things, including working as a consultant to the meat industry in Scotland. And so she has come on my feed before in a disagreeable way, where I've been, I've enjoyed a debate with her. But I have seen her posting some pretty based things about UPFs lately, and Nova. So that's interesting. I guess she has all sorts of food industry clients. This post did very well from the article that Oppenheimer shared. I appreciate that, Oppenheimer. Shout out to you. A farmer was convicted for animal welfare violations and banned from keeping animals. Northern Ireland's Department of Agriculture enforced the animal welfare law by shooting his animals in the head. People are upset because the cows were shot in the head in a way that the public could see and hear it, rather than being shot in the head in a way that the public could not see and hear it. I wonder if anybody involved will be prompted to think, perhaps we shouldn't be shooting cows in the head at all. Been doing some good LinkedIn posts lately, I'm not going to lie. I don't want to flex, but also I kind of do. Love the din. Love the din. We're also picking up likes on my debate challenge to the Chief Executive of the British Poultry Council, Richard Griffiths. That's up to 11 likes now. No response from him. This is 2 days ago. I tagged him yesterday as well. I also commented on another one of his posts. Something fairly agitating, I guess. I was basically just asking him, or pointing out that he wouldn't debate. And let's add him, hey. Why not? Keep your friends close, that's what they say. So we'll do this one from plant-based news. I've had a look at the frames here as these three people who I generally find their analysis to be pretty good on these things. Then we've got a few articles. We got the Q2 financial update for Beyond for any diamond hands Beyond investors. It's kind of a mixed picture, honestly, because their sales went down, but they went down less than expected. And they also had some gains in non-US markets, which is most of markets, right? Like, in terms of consumers buying goods, the US is what? Like, under 5% of the world's population? So we're seeing some, good signs from Europe and Canada, but the important thing is that they beat expectations. They give like a revenue estimate, and we're reading about Oatly beating their revenue estimate the other week, and Beyond Meat has done the same, even though it's down on the previous year, which is kind of the headline figure that you're seeing. Then we have got some updates on patents from the cellular agriculture world, from Veg Economist. I have not read this, but it's always interesting to hear what's going on in the patents for cultivated meat, because that gives you a real, legal-based, I guess, way of measuring very tangible progress. Goodness me. Right, more coffee for me. Then this story on plant-based news also caught my eye. Scientists discover how to grow muscle protein gene inside plants. And it looks like the interesting thing is the two plants that they have achieved this in are lettuce and tobacco. So that seems like a PR disaster waiting to happen. But we'll read about it in more detail. I haven't read any of that yet. And then we've got a couple of long things that we can get into. One is, hey Victors, how's it going? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. One is this longish read on Europe's new meat tycoons. And the other is Earthling Ed's interview with Professor Jonathan Birchwood from the Jeremy Collier Centre for Animal Sentience at LSE. So I was actually on a panel with him a couple of weeks ago. There might be a recording of that somewhere. That was like LSE Climate Action Week, something around that. Maybe I can have a look for that anyway. So maybe I'll do a poll later as to whether we want to watch the Earthling Ed interview or do the long read on Europe's new meat tycoons. I know, Oppenheimer, you're asking the right questions. Earthling Ed, Chris Bryant interview when? You know, I recorded it must be over a year ago. Yeah, a little bit over a year ago. But he's known to have quite a big backlog, I guess. I've known other people who have done it and said, oh yeah, it came out ages after, and he said that to me at the time as well. But yeah, he's maybe it's just doing them chronologically, who knows? Hopefully I'm doing well in the Earthling Ed publication algo. We'll see. So anyway, I'll do a poll for those later on. But yeah, we'll start with plant-based news on Beyond Meat.
No trans fats, no hormones.
Oh, you can hear that, right? Yeah, okay.
Makers of Beyond Meat say that the product is healthier.
Hey, Wilf, Beyond Meat will likely price beyond the company's initial expectations.
Yeah, that's good. Wow, good.
Impressive.
It was billed as one of the most successful IPOs at the time.
Beyond Meat, the best performing IPO so far this year, up 163% on day one.
We've never eaten soy-like hemoglobin before, and scientists just don't know enough about it yet. Is it safe?
In Health Watch, a number of new meatless alternatives to traditional burgers have made headlines in recent months, but some consumers have raised questions about what these products are made from and how nutritious they really are.
If you're going to say that there's less risk of disease, then let's see the clinical research.
This is so interesting. Of course, we do now have that clinical research. This is from 2022. And there have since been several studies done and showing that there's all sorts of better health indicators associated with plant-based meat compared to red and processed meat, certainly. Now, it's interesting as well, looking back on this, it's such an open secret that the idea that plant-based meat, like processed legumes, are going to be unhealthy or less healthy than meat from animals. It's kind of mad that anyone has been convinced of this, really. People in the 80s knew that a soy burger was going to be healthier than a beef burger. It just wasn't thought of as, like they just weren't very good, basically. People didn't want to eat them because they weren't very good. But now that they are very good, they've had to really go for the ultra-processed angle, which we know the Super Bowl ad and the New York Times ads back in 2019 or whenever that was were funded by the Center for Consumer Freedom on behalf of several meat industry actors in the US. And it's interesting now looking back on this various bits of news coverage. I don't know who any of these people are, I don't recognise them, but I wonder how many of them are speaking on behalf of the meat industry in these various media appearances that they've done. This is like a news presenter, I guess. Don't know who this person is. But in hindsight, almost certainly they were funding people in all kind of walks of life, I suppose, to spread around this idea that somehow plant-based meat is unhealthy. So here we go. I'm expecting good analysis. Yeah, methylcellulose, true. I'm expecting good analysis from the plant-based news team. Let's go.
Dr. Garth Davis, who, when he's on a rant, this guy's epic. Let's hear what he has to say.
So I just went to this restaurant, burger place that I go to from time to time. Occasionally, you just want a burger. And they made Beyond Meat burgers. And I went in this time and there's like, I'm sorry, we don't carry Beyond Meat anymore. We do mushroom burgers. Fine, thank you for giving a plant-based option. But of course, I had to ask, well, why did you get rid of the Beyond Burger? And so the guy was like...
Any guesses? Is ultra-processed going to be in this explanation? We've watched a debate that this guy has done, Garth Crooks, who's a plant-based doctor. We watched a debate with him and a carnivore person.
Because it's not healthy. And I said...
Ah, there it is. Why'd you get rid of Beyond Meat? Because it's not healthy. Get him, Garth.
You're selling regular burgers, like regular burgers. Yeah, but those are real meat. Okay, but why is that healthier? And he said, well, they're not processed. I'm like, actually, they are processed, but I get what you're saying, but it's a burger. And I said, do you know about the swap meat trial? Of course he hasn't. The swap meat trial, they took...
Garth Cook just absolutely mogging like some Saturday burger flipper.
I believe it was 30 people, but they put him on...
He's got the RCTs printed off. I got laminated RCTs in my car, bro. You want to go? You want to go? Get him, Garth.
8 weeks of 2 servings a day of either regular meat burgers or a plant-based alternative, which was Beyond Meat. And they looked at several different cardiac factors. Now, look, in 2 weeks, you're not going to see a lot of changes either way, but they actually found that there was a big difference in a chemical called TMAO, especially if you'd started on the meat and then went to the plant-based burger. TMAO is it's basically a byproduct of a breakdown of certain things inside meat, but it has been highly associated with heart disease. There was also a rise in the LDL. This was a crossover trial, so it was the same people. For 8 weeks, they ate the regular burger, 8 weeks the Beyond Burger. Either they started with the Beyond or they started with the meat. During eating meat, they had substantially higher cholesterol levels. And they also, believe it or not, lost weight when they were doing the plant-based burger. Now, the
Garth Cook's explaining... Am I calling you Garth Cook? So that's the wrong name, isn't it? What's his name? His name was in... Oh, whatever. It's Garth someone, isn't it? It's plant-based doctor. I recognise the guy. I think Garth Cook's is someone to do with football. He's explaining this to the Saturday Burger Flipper. The guy's like, mate, there's a long queue behind you. Do you want to... Come on.
burgers, there's 280 calories in a regular burger, and there's, I believe, 230 calories in a Beyond Burger. Beyond Burger had a little bit of fiber, not a lot, but 3 grams. Basically, the claim that a burger is healthier than a Beyond Burger is absolutely unfounded. I mean, completely unfounded. It's ridiculous. Now, do I think a Beyond Burger is necessarily healthy? No. I mean, there's a lot of salt in Beyond Burgers. There's not as much fiber. Like, if you're trying to get the same amount of calories in just black beans...
Salt is the one thing. I spent some time pulling together a bunch of different nutritional profiles for plant-based meat and meat products. I've got a big spreadsheet of them. Big Google sheet somewhere there in the drive. And salt really is the one area where some plant-based products could be called unhealthy. And it really is some. I would say from the products I looked at, I think I had about 60 plant-based products from UK supermarket websites. And I want to say 20% were like a bit high in salt, really. They're very overwhelmingly in the categories where the meat products are also very high in salt. So like bacon, for example. Plant-based bacon, plant-based sausages. These are the things where you can see normally quite high, or I shouldn't say normally, but sometimes quite high salt in those products. But they're lower than the meat equivalent even there. So, I mean, it is a sensible thing to say. It's, and he's talking about Beyond Meat specifically here, right? So, salt definitely is something that you need to look at. But if you look at the salt, and it's a traffic light thing in the UK, right? So we can see if it's green or if it's orange. Avoid if it's red, basically. And yeah, if you're talking about things like bacon, sausages and stuff like that, again, it's compared to what, right? But yeah, Cook.
It'd be a cup and a half of black beans, and there'd be a lot less salt, and there'd be a lot less fat. It'd be a lot more fiber, it'd be a lot more filling. Obviously, whole foods are always going to be healthier. But once in a while, you want a burger. And a Beyond Burger is just as healthy, maybe more healthy than a regular burger, or probably more healthy than a regular burger.
Yeah, healthier, right? I mean...
And, yeah. So, I gave them a friendly earful to my local burger place, but I don't think they bought it.
People don't eat burgers to be healthy.
That really was the speech from the burger place. I love it. I love it. All right, let's go. Let's hear from these guys. Is Beyond Meat healthier than beef? Spoilers, yes.
Healthy. People eat burgers for delicious indulgence, fattiness, taste, texture, memories of childhood or experiences where you've eaten that food and it transcends you to a time and a memory. That's what food does. That's what burgers do, right? They give an ownness of indulgence. And I think that's a very important marker to make here, right? Like nothing about a burger is healthy. Let's not quote that. And even, I mean, your black bean burger alternative, potentially, yes. But if it's laden with vegan mayo and other heavy saturated fats like avocado and on a burger, that can also not be the healthiest type of burger as well, right? But I think the biggest thing here, it kind of just, it almost gets me off onto like what Jeffrey was talking about before. Like, has the plant-based movement lost its way? And I'm like, no, Jeffrey, this is kind of where the plant-based movement is going, right? What we're seeing here is we're building indulgent style foods like burgers and trying to invite people in to give them a comparative value of you can still get what you like, your beefy style texture without all of the saturated fat, without all that extra caloric intake. And by the way, the sodium is comparable when we take a look at what the studies are saying, right? Because oftentimes when people are eating beef, they're adding more salt to their home cooked burgers, right? So,
True. Yes, cook.
Burgers have never been about health.
But here's the thing, and this is something Rich Roll said in a recent podcast episode with Simon Hill, and it's really taking off. This video is doing really, really well. He acknowledged that these plant-based burgers are healthier than the animal-based counterparts. But he said one of the reasons the vegan movement suffered a few years ago is because these companies were making out like they were miles ahead of the pack. They were so much healthier. And actually, these Beyond, I'm not talking about, the Rip Esselstyn Engine 2 diet burgers with like one ingredient. I'm talking about, Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger. Yeah, okay, they might be a little bit healthier, but in the grand scheme of things, they're still very, very processed. So
no, this guy, I expect everything from this guy. Unless he's doing a sort of devil's advocate thing to set her up to say something about that. I listened to the podcast they're talking about, the Simon Hill and who's the other guy they spoke to? I can't. His name's escaping me. Rich Roll. And yeah, I feel like they went on about this particular point quite a lot. For me, there was like, exactly as Klaus is describing it here, a quite quick and brief acknowledgement that, okay, plant-based meat is healthier than meat. And then like quite a long, it was 90% caveat. And I get their point was to say that we had as a movement somehow overstated the healthiness of plant-based meat. I think that we've got the opposite problem. I think that most people are operating with the idea that processed necessarily equals unhealthy, and that itself is a result of a great amount of lobbying around that idea. And they are mistakenly coming to the conclusion that it's kind of a wash, which it really isn't. If you look at the saturated fat comparison, which is the driver for heart disease, high cholesterol and heart disease, it's easily favourable to the plant-based options over the meat. So too on calorie density. Most people are overweight or obese. I think overweight or obese is like in the 60%, something like that. So, I mean, it's crazy. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going? Nice to see you. So, yeah, people on these trials had lost more weight compared to the group that were eating meat from animals. They had also lower cholesterol was the other big one. I really hope that the other lady says something about the processed point here, because I think it really leads a lot of people astray on this.
I think part of the problem here is a messaging problem from the companies, and people just felt like it was kind of disingenuous. They felt like they're being lied to.
When you look at Beyond Meat or Impossible Foods or Oatly, like the stock prices of these companies are in the tank. And grocery stores that used to have gigantic sections devoted to plant-based milks or meat and dairy alternatives have shrunk. The appetite for these products has been reduced. And it does have a lot to do with the way that the health benefits or health implications of these products were communicated publicly. I think that when you look at them, you can make the argument that they are health.
I'll just pitch in and say, to the extent that it has shrunk, that is very much an American phenomenon. We're seeing growth in plant-based meat sales in most places in Europe and also globally. But yeah, go off, King.
Communicated publicly. I think that when you look at them, you can make the argument that they are healthier in the wash in comparison to their animal versions of them.
I really don't like that. I think that's really understating the case. And this is like the brief acknowledgement. Okay, maybe they're healthier in the wash, which doesn't a wash mean that it's like there's nothing really to choose between them? It's a draw. Saying they're healthier in the wash, I don't know. That's kind of a weird turn of phrase, but that's the extent of the acknowledgement that plant-based meat's healthier than meat. And then pretty much the rest of this part of the podcast was, but they're really bad because they're processed. I felt like I feel like I want to tear my ears off in the gym. Garth Davis, thank you, Planet Bees. Garth Crooks. Who is Garth Crooks? He's something to do with football, isn't he?
The communication was presenting them as health foods, when in fact, most of them are pretty highly processed foods. And I think people felt gaslit a little bit, like they're being fed a lie that was pretty transparent. And that led to a breach of trust. And I think that contributed to people breaking up with whatever short-term affair they had, eating a more plant-predominant diet.
That is very interesting because, yeah, I do remember there was a time where everybody was eating these vegan burgers and absolutely loving life. And then the whole ultra-processed argument came in. So like you said, maybe it was more just about the disparity between how much healthier they actually are versus trying to market it, like Shabnam said, it's just like an enjoyable thing to eat once in a while. Like, I think...
Yeah, I wouldn't even necessarily concede that, to be honest. She said at the start, no burger's going to be healthy. I mean, I don't even think that's true. Like, the Lynn McCartney vegan quarter-pounder burgers you can get in the UK, low enough salt that's, you could have 4 of them. High protein, high fiber, low fat, like healthy calorie density. They're a really good thing to have in your diet if you're not eating meat and you're trying to get a lot of protein. As long as they don't have salt, like, you're good to go. Linda McCartney ones in the UK, that's what my trainer recommended to me. And if you just eat them if you have them in some massive burger with a load of sauce and other stuff, maybe it ends up being too much calories. But the actual plant-based meat component of that, I would sometimes make them, bang them in the air fryer, 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 of them. You get the protein, it's satisfying, it's filling, it feels like a treat, but it's not even too calorific or unhealthy, it's not high in salt. So I think they're really, really good, the plant-based burgers. I mean, again, the only thing to look out for is salt.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me because, like, I want to...
The one thing I will say on this, and this is kind of different from the approach that they seem to be taking here, the one thing I will say on this is that consumer studies have shown that people are not necessarily motivated by positive health claims on plant-based products. And part of that is because they are reading it as if that means that they are less tasty. If you have a product that's like low salt, low fat, it's indicating that it's healthy, but it's also like, that probably isn't going to be that tasty, right? So there's some great studies where they've shown that there's one where they have 4 variations of a label for a food product. One of them is just basic, has no kind of health descriptions on it. One of them is an indulgent label, says like, rich, creamy, whatever, like, sugary. It doesn't say that, but it focuses on the taste. And then there's two health labels. One of them is, I can't remember what they call it. Like, they're basically positive and negative health labels. So one of them is added vitamins and minerals, like added fiber or something like that. And then another one is like low fat, low salt, low sugar, like doesn't include harmful stuff. They're both like health positive messages. And relative to the basic group, the indulgent label group selected at a higher rate, but both of the health label groups selected at a lower rate. So actually including like health claims on plant-based product packaging, certainly in this case, actually reduced sales compared to saying nothing at all. Such is the importance of taste and like perceived taste or implied taste relative to healthiness when you're in the burger aisle, I guess. But yeah, they're still healthier than meat.
Go to a barbecue and have a Beyond Meat burger, but even amongst like, people I know that eat meat, they'll be like, oh, that's very unhealthy. And I'm like, you're eating a burger. Do you know what I mean? We're all here to eat burgers, or they're having sausage.
Yeah, people think that she's Slay Queen. People think that because it's processed, it's less healthy than meat. It is not. Plant-based meat is healthier than meat. That's the main part that we should be saying loudly and repeatedly until cows come home. Am I allowed to say that? We should be saying plant-based meat is healthier than meat because it is. And I hope that we can all like be confident and loud in saying that, because the average person is getting washed over with this ultra-processed nonsense.
Sausages on the barbecue, or any other amount of processed things, but for some reason the plant-based burger is just seen as like, really, really bad.
True, but I think that opens up a conversation of like, how do we define healthy? What
I hope this isn't wishy-washy. Like, you saying, yes, and those people are completely incorrect because it has low saturated fat, it has low, like...
What are the metrics and standards of that? Are we looking at saturated fat? Are we looking at TMAO? Okay. Are we looking at...
Okay, Slay. All right. That was pause, Andy.
LDL cholesterol after the consumption of a beef-based burger versus a plant-based burger. Like, these are all evidence and factors that we now have in our studies that can showcase that, technically speaking, eating a plant-based burger can be healthier than eating a meat-based counterpart.
It's too caveated for my taste. That's a bit too caveated for my taste. Can I try another? That's a bit too caveated for my taste. Plant-based meat is healthier than meat, on average, in most cases. Can you find products where there's too high a salt? Yes, you certainly can. Even then, they tend to be replacements for products which also have very high salt. Are plant-based meats unhealthy because they're processed? No, absolutely not. That has never made sense. Ultra-processed was never intended as a health metric. It is an overly broad and ill-defined concept. Throw the processed thing out the window and just talk about what actually matters, which is nutrition. And is plant-based meat healthier than meat? Yes, in almost all cases, yes. So I don't like can be, could technically be. It's like plant-based meat is healthier than meat.
But it's not considered a health food. So we can't conflate the two. Just because it has healthier in its comparative value doesn't make it a health food.
A health food, I mean, that's also difficult to find. Again, I think you could have like a ton of low salt plant-based meat and have it just be a good source of fiber and protein, and that's fine. There's no downsides. If there's low saturated fat, low salt. I mean, I don't know what the exact definition of a health food is, but I can't see how that would be unhealthy.
And that's very important to note.
Yeah, but that's why I find it weird when people are like, oh yeah, but it's unhealthy, whilst they're simultaneously eating a burger made of animals. Like, we aren't talking about health foods anyway. I'm just like, ah.
There was this comment.
I don't even think in those interactions, like, it would be a poor interaction if you're at the barbecue and you're eating a Beyond Burger and somebody who's eating a beef burger says to you, "Oh, that's unhealthy." Just say it's healthier than meat. Just say plant-based meat's healthier than meat. This is going to be healthier than that is. And like I would never. I would hope that I would never spend like 80% of that interaction saying, well, I guess it's not a health food, and like, yeah, it could be healthier, and some of these products are unhealthy. Like, plant-based meat's healthier than meat.
And I know, Sarah, you're going to be talking about the comments on the Dr. Garth Davis video, which is fascinating, but on the Rich Roll video that I mentioned, which was titled "The Lies That Killed the Vegan Movement," one of the comments was, the problem was that the movement became plant-based rather than vegan. Health trends come and go, but veganism is an ethical commitment to reducing animal exploitation and suffering wherever practical and possible. For many of us, it's also a spiritual practice, living with compassion, non-violence, ahimsa, and respect for the interconnectedness of all life. Trends fade, compassion doesn't.
True, but that's an identity that a majority of people in this world don't share. And so when you live on the fringes of that bell curve of the 1% to 2%, it's ideal. We'd love everybody to be there, but not everybody falls there. Most people fall in the middle of the bell curve. And so
yeah, someone in chat's asking about, I think someone in chat, Oppenheimer, do you know how much plant-based, or do you know much about how plant-based meat compares to whole plant proteins health-wise? Jeremy got to the vary so widely, we're considering things like soya chunks and Thai-style soy and wheat strips. I think they compare favourably to whole plant sources in some ways. Yeah, what's the thing... the name's escaping my mind now, but there's some anti-nutrients in unprocessed legumes that inhibits iron absorption. I can't now remember what it's called, but it's someone in chat might know it. But levels of that anti-nutrient go down when processing from peas or soy, for example, into plant-based meat. And they can be fortified as well, which are lectins. Yeah, that's it, Jeremy. Thank you. Yeah, lectins. So you get a lot of lectins in beans and the like, and that can inhibit iron absorption, but you don't have that problem with plant-based meat. Now, plant-based meat can also be fortified with B12 and iron, other things that people would normally... or most people get from meat, I should say. We actually just published a preprint of a nutritional guideline for plant-based meat alternatives. I'll put the link to that in chat if people are interested. I won't go through it on stream because it's like boring. I mean, it's boring content. But there's a couple of things in here where we're suggesting what should be the sort of targets for nutritional guidelines for plant-based meat alternatives. These are the things to get more of. These are the things to limit. So that's there if anyone wants to have a look at that in more detail. Lectins not decrease when cooking, though. Yeah, I think they do when cooking as well. But when you're having cooked legumes, you are having, I think that's right, some amount of lectins that is problematic for iron absorption. And yeah, the fortification is the other thing as well. And also just like protein percentage. Because if you actually look at like other things that vegan, or like, I shouldn't say vegan say, but like we talk about getting protein from, like beans have more carbs than they do protein. So you're going to have quite a lot of calories to get. I mean, this all really is like if you're like very concerned with protein consumption, or if you're lifting in the gym or something like that. But yeah, in most cases, they can just be a better source of protein in terms of protein to calories and protein to volume. I mean, tofu and tempeh and seitan are pretty good on that as well. But yeah, plant-based meat, I don't think there's any reason to not have it considered as a healthy source of protein if it's not too high in salt and sat fat.
Of the 1% to 2%, it's ideal. We'd love everybody to be there, but
nuts as well, like a lot of nuts are fat as opposed to protein. They do have protein, of course, but yeah, what people think of as whole foods will tend to have quite a low percentage of protein as calories.
Not everybody falls there. Most people fall in the middle of the bell curve.
Yeah, appreciate Oppenheimer. All right, let me rewind here.
Of people in this world don't share. And so when you live on the fringes of that bell curve of the 1% to 2%, it's ideal. We'd love everybody to be there, but not everybody falls there. Most people fall in the middle of the bell curve. And so we need to be communicating in ways that bring them into our particular lifestyle patterns. And to be honest, talking about animal welfare is not a way that turns people to eating less meat sometimes. That's what...
I'm glad for the sometimes caveat. That is the most effective thing for turning people to eating less meat in my reading of the research. And even as you said, animal welfare, because I think that one thing that Project Slingshot does very well, and that some of the Roger Yates types have criticised them for, is focusing on particularly cruel and objectionable practices in animal farming, and then inviting people to discover this is almost all animal farming, rather than like a rights-based message even, which is going to be more difficult for average normies to accept. Just say, do we really have to do the gas chambers? Do we really have to do the Franken-chickens? Like the most obscene, objectionable, clearly wrong parts of it, the cages, right? These are the things where you get 80, 90+% of people agreeing that this is bad. So if you hammer on that and then have people discover, oh, this is not, this is like all animal farming, basically all animal farming, then I think that is the route that you're going to actually get down the number of animals having knives in their throats as an average messaging strategy. But good that she caveated sometimes, you know. All right.
What we're just finding in our research. So it's how do we start enticing people to eat foods to showcase that they are comparable in taste parity and satiety, right? You're not sacrificing something you're not giving up your burger. You still get to eat that. And it's a transitional food. It's a transitional way of thinking. And I feel...
No, I don't like that either. That you're going to limit the market if... I've always thought this about a lot of vegan messaging relating to plant-based meat. It's way too cautious. It's insufficiently bullish. This is why I need to get the plant-based meat's healthier than meat t-shirt. This is why I think I've said that 7 words on every stream I've ever done. And it remains true. And I think that even when we say it, there often is too much caveating. It's not a health food. It should be a transition food. Yeah, it is unhealthy. Like, plant-based meat is healthier than meat. And it's not too high in salt and sat fat. It can be a healthy source of protein in your diet. I don't think we need to say anything more than that, basically. A transition, like if we have it as like, you shouldn't, you know, this is for like people to eat in the first like year of going vegan, but you really shouldn't be having it longer than that, then the concept's going to be doomed, isn't it? I mean, maybe some people do, you know, I've eaten plant-based meat for years and years and years, and I'll keep on eating it. If you don't have too much fat or salt in there, it can be a healthy source of protein in your diet. I don't think we need all this caveating, to be totally honest.
Feel like that's where the movement is going. How do we tap into not the vegans, but the flexitarians? And so I could see how the vegans who have fought for this movement for eons feel a bit slighted.
There is one comment here from a guy. I actually don't know if it is a guy, from a person.
I'm not sure if I really followed that. Wait, let me back that. Why do the vegans feel slighted?
Right? You're not sacrificing something you're not giving up your burger. You still get to eat that. And it's a transitional food. It's a transitional way of thinking. And I feel like that's where the movement is going. How do we tap into not the vegans, but the flexitarians? And so I could see how the vegans who have fought for this movement for eons feel a bit slighted.
There is one comment here from a guy.
Is she saying that because it's kind of aimed at flexitarians or meat reducers? Which, by the way, I would contest that as well. Well, I mean, look, that is largely who it's aimed at and who we should be aiming at. But certainly a big portion of the, volume sales at the moment are going to be vegetarians and vegans. I'm not really sure I'm getting why they would feel slighted in any sense. I might miss something there. Oh, nice, Bandit PK. I always share that recent great Hannah Ritchie, Our World in Data article. Most people care about farm animals. Our food system doesn't reflect that. Nice. Hey, is that my data? I think it bloody might be. Our World in Data does have one from Bright Research Data. Yes, it is. Data source, Bright Research. Yes, yeah, this is UK survey data that we did in 2022, where people could say that these things are acceptable, not acceptable, or no opinion. So there you go. Hey, Tristan King, nice to see you. How's it going? The King is here. Oh yeah, no, it's our World in Data though. I guess that is most often Hannah Ritchie. Pablo Rosado on this one.
Guy, I actually don't know if it is a guy, from a person, who says even the lack of heme iron should be a plus for the Beyond Burgers, but then goes on to say, yet the coconut oil, the canola oil, the potassium chloride, the methyl cellulose are off-putting. For the record, I do not eat flesh and do not miss it, but if I did, the list of highly processed ingredients would probably make
Nice, Bandit. I appreciate that.
me postpone the change to a vegan diet indefinitely.
And again, I think this is where we were talking about earlier, like the scientific verbiage.
Interesting, Jeremy. What similar markets are supported by occasional consumers and fast food in general overwhelmingly supported by daily consumers like alcohol? I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of like that 80-20 principle operating in the business world, I guess, where 80% of your sales are coming from 20% of your customers, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, obviously we hope that customer base is growing, and some people acquire a disgust response to eating something that's like meat. So they don't want their plant-based meat to be too reminiscent, or they'd rather have tofu or whatever, like if you've not eaten meat for a very long time. I've just boshed off a packet of... this isn't pork cocktail sausages. Just smashed that myself. And you know what? Even in... This is one of the formats I said was going to be saltier. And even then, this says half a pack contains 14% of your salt. So I just had a whole pack of them, which is not how these are intended to be consumed. But also... this has got, what, 28 grams of protein, something like that, for the whole pack. not bad for... Again, that's only 28% of your salt target, and that's going to be one of the saltier things that I'll eat today, I'd hope. I've had my fix now. And also only 14% of your daily calorie recommendation as well. Low in saturated fat, high in fibre. Not bad, not bad.
That language doesn't fit the anecdotal story. But if I start like giving a nursery rhyme of like what methyl cellulose is comparative to its everyday usage, people will listen. And so I hear people loud and clear, but
it's frustrating.
Hey, the other thing on this, this processed argument where people are saying like, vegan burgers are more processed. The meat
Come on. Do it, Klaus.
industry call their factories meat processing plants. So even if a meat burger has one ingredient, most have more, right? Let's be honest. Most meat consumed is a class 1 carcinogen, which causes cancer by the World Health Organization. But even if you're going to take many, many forms of animal products, they are reared in meat, they're killed in meat processing plants. So they are processed. Certainly way more than just putting a few vegan ingredients together.
Exactly. And it has to be in some way preserved, right? Which is also a form of processing. Farmers or slaughterhouse people will literally call it processing an animal, but nobody wants.
Yeah, that's kind of a euphemism, isn't it? It doesn't, to be fair, that doesn't mean the same as... You can have fresh meat which is group 1 over unprocessed. Just because they say processing as a euphemism in the slaughterhouse, that's not really the same. The main point should be here, degree of processing is not connected to how healthy a food is, and red meat in any form is associated with higher rates of cancer and heart disease. Certainly processed meat. And that plant-based meat is not.
Wants to think about that because they like their foods and they like the way things have been, We have another comment here which is kind of casting aspersions on the conversation about plant-based meat versus animal meat, which says, I wonder how much you get paid to promote this. I would love to see a study comparing the fake meat with a true carnivore or ketovore diet.
Uh-oh. Well... maybe Michaela Peterson's GoFundMe will get unbanned. Should we have a check-in on that, actually? Michaela... How's it spelled? It's like this, isn't it? Peterson, GoFundMe. Oh, look, my video comes up. That's a different thing. I can't see the link to it now. Oh, here it is. Donation protected. We guarantee you a full refund in rare cases something isn't right. Is that... Do they always have that there? I think this has gone up since we last looked, to be fair. It seems to have been unblocked. Right? I can't... I'm allowed to donate to it now. She didn't have this last time we came here. Donation protected. I want to know if this is a feature of all GoFundMe pages or if it's just on dubious causes. Let's not dox people who are raising money near me. Charity bike ride. Okay, maybe it is on all things. Well, there you go. MP's GoFundMe has been unblocked. I feel like this has gone up since we last looked at it, but it's still not halfway, and this has now been up for close to a year. So, fair play, she must have appealed that, hey. Wonder if there was any, she tweeted about it before, didn't she? All right. Well.
I'll even go back to when I sort of got the idea. I was opening the New York Times 3 different times. There's this full page ad like slamming all the new plant-based meats, saying these things are dog food, these things are crap, these things, I can't believe people are eating them. Maybe they're good for the environment, but they're full of coconut oil for the saturated fat. They're high in sodium and they're ultra processed. So your cholesterol's going up, your blood pressure's going up, and your weight's going up. And I thought,
coconut oil is not great for saturated fat, but I will say that most plant-based meats don't have that either.
That's my superpower. I do that kind of.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that's right.
Study. That wouldn't really be that hard.
And again, in any case, it's going to be way lower saturated fat than the red meat. But all right, sorry, let me not pause them too much.
Of coconut oil for the saturated fat. They're high in sodium and they're ultra processed. So your cholesterol's going up, your blood pressure's going up, and your weight's going up. And I thought, that's my superpower. I do that kind of study. That wouldn't really be that hard. I could give people a couple servings a day of plant meat and a couple servings a day of red meat. In fact, I bet we could deliver that. This is 8 weeks each. It's a crossover, so everybody did both things. So I think we enrolled 40 and 36 finished, so we have good retention. And LDL cholesterol went down, not up. And that was pretty easy to predict because yes, coconut fat is saturated, but there was less saturated fat in the plant-based alternative. We said, you're on your own for the rest. We're not buying you the rest of the food. But we do want to say that if it's the burger and you're having a white bun, and we don't want you to have a white bun, but if you have a white bun in one phase, you need to have it in both phases. And if you put on iceberg lettuce on one, you got to put iceberg lettuce on both. But if you put the whole grain, organic, foofy bun on one, you got to put it on both. And if you have the farmer's market lettuce and tomato on one burger, you got to have it on both. LDL cholesterol went down, not up. Blood pressure didn't change. So let's just do the sodium really quickly. So yes, the Beyond Meat burgers have more sodium than ground beef. But guess what? When people get ground beef, they salt it. And so by the time you looked at it at the end, the sodium intake was identical in the two groups. And the blood pressure didn't change. We also looked at TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which is, if you're on Twitter, you'll see it's a little controversial. Some people think it's a very cool emerging new risk factor that Stan Hazen from the Cleveland Clinic identified about a decade ago. That was our primary outcome, and it went down in the Beyond Meat eaters. So anyway, basically that was swap meat. The things that they got trashed for in the newspaper of getting worse, didn't they? Even lost weight, not much weight, but they lost pretty much on average, they lost a pound or two. Clinically, a pound or two is not very relevant, but it was fascinating. Almost everyone lost a pound or two. And so if it's very consistent, it can still be.
That's after 8 weeks as well.
Statistically significant, even though it's not clinically relevant. But I kind of liked it because the story was, because of Kevin Hall's study, they're going to gain weight. Because of the saturated fat, their cholesterol will go up. Because of the sodium, the blood pressure will go up. None of those things happened. And TMAO went down. So it was a win for the plant-based meat. If the question is instead of red meat.
Hey, also guys, there's another really
that guy's the king. That's what we should be talking about. Swap meat trial. There's been a few other RCTs on this as well, and even meta-analyses of those RCTs, which are pointing in all the same directions that you mentioned.
Cool clip that I saw from Dr. Matthew Nagrad that I think is really relevant here. So he was talking about a meta-analysis from 2025 that looked at the difference in plant-based meat and animal meat.
And just earlier this year, there was a meta-analysis on plant-based meats and heart health, and they looked at 7 randomized controlled trials at the time. Again, like I said, I think there's been even a couple others since they wrote up this meta-analysis. And they found that the plant-based meats reduced total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and body weight. And there were no significant differences in glucose, triglycerides, or blood pressure. And again, that blood pressure finding is interesting given the sodium content.
Do you know, I think that's really interesting as well. When you look at that kind of literature, the comparisons of the plant-based and red meat in the clinical trials that they're talking about, I think the first of those is like 2021 or 2. It's super recent. And it's because it's all kind of inspired by the meat industry funded campaign. that plant-based meat is going to be unhealthy because it's processed. And so really only in the last 5 years, people have gone away and actually studied that rigorously. And unlike public opinion, which is slow to recognize evidence sometimes, institutional decision makers do understand and respond to that. And if governments have teams of nutrition researchers look into this, they will find, oh, in fact, plant-based meat is healthier than meat. So that does seem to have gone well at the institutional level, even if it's not yet kind of, even if the public is still obsessed on the ultra-processed stuff for now.
I got away from this from Dr. Nagra is this doesn't mean
You're good, Bretta. Nice to see you.
That every plant-based burger is a health food or healthy food. Some are actually really genuinely high in sodium, but ultra processed, well, it really isn't the own that people think it is. There's
Okay, go off, sis. Come on, this is the part of the video I was waiting for. We're 16 minutes in. Go off, sis.
plenty of animal products that are also ultra processed. The thing to remember here is the category really isn't the enemy.
Yes, all right, go off, sis.
The nutrition profile is what really matters.
So if I had to come up with a summary myself from this topic, it's that Beyond Meat burgers are most definitely healthier than regular burgers, but it's not going to be the cross I die on. It's not going to be the argument I spent ages researching.
I'm not quite sure what he means by saying that. Like, we don't need a but. Just say the first part. Plant-based meat's healthier than meat. That's the conclusion that you should take away. Even if you like, it sounds like unnecessary caveating, even if it's not really. Well, let's. Because
I just think we're swimming against the tide. I just think it's not worth spending loads of.
But it's true. That makes it more worth saying. Most people assume that plant-based meat is not healthy, and they are wrong. I don't know if it's fair to say most people assume that plant-based meat is not healthy. Maybe there is now. Like, we've been so propagandized with the plant-based meat is ultra-processed is bad chain of messaging, which again, funded by Centre for Consumer Freedom, funded by various meat industry messages, various meat industry actors, that like a lot of people are starting to doubt this, even though it's so true. And for me, there's been kind of too much caveating all around in this. But like, I'm glad that the summary is at least plant-based meat is healthier than meat. The but seems unnecessary. And it seems more valuable to say it if we're swimming against the tide.
Effort educating people about how, Impossible Foods or Beyond Meat, companies like that, are producing products that are that much healthier than regular burgers. They might be marginally a little bit healthier, maybe significantly healthier, but I don't really think that's going to win people over, in my opinion.
I don't think burgers are a health food, but
This is killing me. Like, we've conceded so much ground unnecessarily on this. Plant-based meat is healthier than meat. That could have been a 5-second video.
if you see me at a barbecue this summer, yes, I will be having a plant-based burger.
And around 2019, a group of industry representatives, and I refer to them as the Merchants of Doubt, which is a reference to a book that was written on that subject when they were doing this around tobacco and climate change. And the Merchants of Doubt got money together, and they started to fund campaigns against our industry and against Beyond Meat. So every time we'd have a quarterly call with investors, they would publish something in the paper, they'd run TV ads, they would do big social media campaigns, and they were brilliant.
That's interesting they were timing this around the Beyond Meat quarterly reportings, like, in particular. I wonder how true that is. They're very focused on this one particular company. I mean, they were like the big IPO'd company, weren't they? So it seems possible.
They were smarter than us. They beat us. They said, fake meat, real chemicals. They said, this food is ultra-processed. And those that didn't want to make a change didn't make a change. But what was so dangerous, King says, every society will have its protectors of the status quo. But he also says, and the fraternities of the indifferent. And it's the fraternities of the indifferent that we found so frustrating. Because here we were building beautifully clean products that took protein right from the farmer's field, and instead of running it through factory farms and through animals to the plate, we ran it directly from the field, and we separated the protein from the fiber, and we put that protein through heating, cooling, and pressure, and we landed that protein right on the center of the plate. Clean, efficient process, but it became demonized. And we knew that the people that didn't want to make the change would accept that argument. What we didn't know is that the enlightened omnivore would also accept that argument, that the progressives would also accept that argument. And they'd say, you know what, that food's processed, I don't want it. So we started to fight back. We started to create products that we thought would be unassailable. The challenge is this narrative, this negative narrative, has a very long tail. And it has folks that are willing to keep spending to make sure that people believe it. But here's the truth. The system we're going up against is also challenged. So I work with meat providers in Europe, and I say, why are beef prices going up so much in Europe? Got the foot and mouth disease. Why are they going up so much here in the United States? They have drought. This system that we're going up against is held together by duct tape, antibiotic, and subsidies. We just have to survive and advance. And if we do that, we will prevail. This system will perish.
Go off, King. He's a very good speaker. Hey, this is lit. I remember listening to this talk before, and very much this is my thinking on the topic now. We've been talking about the rising beef prices. We've had crazy drought here in the UK. We're reading this week about cattle going to slaughter early because there was not enough rainfall for the grass, and that farmers are running down their winter feed stocks already. So the price of beef has gone up a ton here already, and it's about to go up more.
And we will be successful. We have to survive in advance to get there. We have to pull together. So if you're a plant-based eater and you're buying in and you're posting on our site, oh, just have legumes, you're perpetuating a belief system which is false.
So true, King. So true, King. Like, way too many vegans have conceded this area. Oh yeah, no, plant-based meat's unhealthy because it's ultra-processed and you shouldn't actually have it. You should just have whole food plant-based. If you want to do that, that's fine, but do not do the messaging that the meat industry is having to spend money doing. Let them spend their money. If they want to keep the ultra-processed thing going, let the meat industry lobby spend their money. We don't need to be saying that for them. We really don't. We need to be much bolder, as Ethan Brown is being here, in saying plant-based meat's healthier than meat. We don't need to concede, well, it is actually processed and it's really a transition food and it's not really a health food and stuff like this. Like, yeah, I don't know. Also, true, Bandit, nutrition profile is important. Even then, health outcome data is king. Mechanistic speculation around nutrient composition can also lead to erroneous conclusions. Yeah, very true. Would offend it like tobacco, real meat is to quote. Yeah, true. Yeah, Ethan Brown is giving go off King here.
So that protein doesn't have to go through a factory farm. That protein has no antibiotics, no hormones, no arsenic, no pus, no feces, no death, no fear, not a large amount of methane. If you can shrink the agricultural footprint, we can allow nature to come back. People forget this. The 60 billion bison that were here, the wolves, the prairie dogs, the cougars, the beautiful creatures that were here, the pronghorns, we can let them all come back if we shrink our
True, Oppenheimer.
agricultural footprint. And in doing that, in saving nature, we can save ourselves because we're taking carbon out of the air. We're bringing and cooling the climate. This is enough, if we do it aggressively, to meet the UN requirements, to bring the temperature down, to stop this climate catastrophe. We need to get after this. We need to recruit the people that are closest in to help us do this. We can do it. And that, to me, is the most inspiring part about this. It's not between us and the government anymore. It's between us and the consumer. Let's help them make that choice to take the right type of protein, whether it's legume, whether it's plant-based meat, so that we together can take control of our destiny, of our world, of our future, and not let this negative narrative pervade.
Go off, King. True from Ethan Brown. I totally agree that we've conceded way too much ground on plant-based meat as the vegan movement. I see far too much implying that it's really unhealthy, even from vegans. It's healthier than meat, and if it's low in sat, fat, and salt, you can have it as a regular source of healthy protein. Let's see, fresh off this video about Beyond Meat, we've got a Beyond Meat financial update. Hey VPM, how's it going? Nice to see you. Beyond Meat bets on international markets as US sales plunge further in Q2 2026. So, US sales is the key thing to note here. I wonder if they say anything about their overall global sales here. The other big thing... Okay, yes, they do talk about overall revenue, of course. Right. And that's down, but less down than they expected, so it beats their expectations and it beat analysts' expectations. So anyone with the diamond hands on Beyond stock, I think we're at the start of the great plant-based comeback, and I will be surprised if Beyond don't take a slice of that. Any diamond hands on Beyond? Continued headwinds in food service and the US led to an 8% decline in Beyond Meat's Q2 2026 sales, but success in European and Canadian retail helped it beat its own revenue estimates. So as I said, bit of a mixed picture on the Beyond reportings here. The headline is down on the same period for last year, but it's less down than their projections, and it's also got some bright spots of, dare I say, growth in Europe and Canada. Let's see. As it ramps up the rollout of its sparkling protein drinks with the help of its brand ambassador, New York Knicks star Josh Hart, Beyond Meat's top line continued its slide in the second quarter of the year. Now known as Beyond the Plant Protein Company, they're always going to be Beyond Meat, aren't they? To me. Its revenue for the April to June period totaled $68.8 million, an 8.2% fall from Q2 2025, primarily driven by a 9.5% decrease in volume sales. There's the tough headline on that. Now we've got the but. Still, this exceeded its own revenue guidance of 60 to 65 million for the quarter and beat analyst estimates of 62.4 million. So they're a good 5% ahead of their own expectations and close to 10% ahead of analyst expectations. The contraction in sales was much less severe than the 15.3% drop in Q1 2026 and 19.7% dip in the last quarter of 2025. Okay, that's interesting. So for each subsequent quarter, the dip compared to the previous year has gotten narrower. So it's gone from a 20% dip in the last quarter of last year, then a 15% dip in the first quarter of this year, and the second quarter of this year has just ended only an 8% dip. We're going to probably see that going up at some point soon, aren't we? If that trend continues on, we're going to see Q2 2025, sorry, Q4 2025 this is, Q1 2026, Q2 2026, and it was minus 19.7%, was it? Minus 15.3 and minus, they must be talking about revenue here, 8.2. So 15.3, 8.2. 15.3 minus 8.2. That's... Oh, I have them for percentages, that's why. So let's extend this out a little bit. Q3 2026, Q4 2026, Q1 2027, Q2 2027. How would we... Trying to work out how I can actually continue this on in a reasonable way. Pretty much the line's going like this. So maybe by Q4 of this year, or Q1 of next year, we're going to be in the territory where we can actually start to expect growth compared to the previous year. Another sign of the great plant-based comeback, if you ask me. This is going to go to growth, surely. This is the last 3 quarters of revenue, and it's beat analyst expectations. So it's actually, yeah, the rate of recovery has also increased here compared to the rate between the last 2. So this line would, if anything, be bending like that. Maybe Q3, maybe even Q3 this year, who knows? The firm's now deepening its investments into the one bright spot of its business, international retail, while working to stabilize its US performance and evolve from a narrow focus on plant-based meat to a broader focus on nutrition, founder and CEO Ethan Brown told investors. Yeah, so stories about Beyond are going to be mostly stories about the American market. And we've seen in that GFI data that the American market is still sliding, but many of the key European markets are on the up now for plant-based meat. I guess it's not as big a market for Beyond Meat because they're an American company, you know, mostly doing business in America. But they've seen growth in Europe and Canada here, so maybe they're going to lean into that. Beyond recorded a gross profit of 5.9 million in Q2 2026, down by 8.5% from the corresponding period a year ago. Its net income, meanwhile, reached 16.4 million compared to a loss of 31.8 million last year. This was thanks to a 57.7 non-cash gain on debt extinguishment from the conversion of some of its 2030 notes. Okay. Broadly speaking, on a year-over-year basis, we continue to experience the greatest pressure in our food service channels, both in the US and abroad, while our retail channels are showing more encouraging signs of improvement, most notably in international, Beyond CEO Luby Couture said in an earnings call. CFO, sorry. US retail signs of stabilization, but meat industry attacks continue to bite. Yeah, so much of this is coming from the misleading meat industry talking points. I mean, they really nailed it with all the ultra-processed stuff. They've created the illusion that plant-based meat is not healthier than meat, and so many people have bought into it, including a lot of vegans, unfortunately. We got to get the plant-based meat's healthier than meat t-shirts out. Do you know what? I might send a few of those out to people. Hit me up on Discord if you want a plant-based meat's healthier than meat t-shirt. Hit me up as well if you want to design that. Because if I do it will just be that plain white text on a black t-shirt, which is decent, but I'm sure someone can design something better than I can. So what do we got here? This is revenues each year, and this is for the first half of 2026. So that is on for being 252 if the second half performance is the same as the first half. So it's going to be a little bit down, but again, less of a drop than the previous year. And again, do you know what as well? We always talk about 2021 being the peak and there's been a massive drop since then. There has been in their stock price. But the most recent full year sales are still above 50% of the peak. there's reason to think this decline is already slowing down, and probably in a couple of years we're going to see this going back up, because again, all of the research showing that plant-based meat's healthier than meat is really only in the last 5 years, since there was doubt cast on that by the whole ultra-processed narrative, which again, open secret that this is funded by the meat industry, open secret that the Centre for Consumer Freedom and others are acting on behalf of big American meat actors to perpetuate the idea that plant-based meat is ultra-processed and ultra-processed is unhealthy. It's a false idea. Plant-based meat's healthier than meat. And all of the research showing that very clearly has only really been in the last 5 years. So I think that's going to now start to filter through. Certainly the institutions are aware of this, and the discourse is increasingly finding that hard to account for on the other side. But we still need more of us saying more confidently and consistently and loudly, plant-based meat is healthier than meat. So hit me up if you want a t-shirt. Beyond's net revenues in its home market were down by 14.4% year-on-year. Sales in retail shrunk by nearly 10% to 29.6 million, with the decline worsening to 27.6% in food service, totaling just 8 million. The worst performing part of the company's business. In both these channels, it suffered from lower volume sales and net revenue per pound, with Beyond blaming weak category demand, reduced distribution, higher trade discounts, and lower price realization on certain products. These factors were offset by change in the product sales mix. So going to probably talk about the drink as well. The Beyond Immerse drink has got a feature in here. I'm not sure if I've read anything on how that's going. It seems to be like a product for the Ozempic market in many ways. It's like that light, fruity flavour. Doesn't feel heavy and still has, I think, 20 grams of protein. We are seeing some signs of stabilisation in certain pockets of US retail, with our core burger, ground beef and dinner sausage products demonstrating resiliency in specific, though certainly not all, accounts, said Brown. We are hopeful that these positive signs endure and strengthen, but we're also acutely aware that misinformation regarding the health of our products continues to impact our retail and food service businesses in the United States, he added, touching upon a familiar gripe for the plant protein maker. Yeah, I'm glad that Ethan Brown says this. It's misinformation. We know that it's been meat industry funded. We've now got several clinical studies to prove that it's wrong. Again, people knew in the 80s that soy burgers are obviously healthier than red meat burgers. It's only really in the last half a decade that people have lost their confidence in saying that at all, because of a massive, well-funded, aggressive marketing campaign to suggest the opposite. VPM had a comment you want to read. Sorry, I'm really getting into the reading here, so I haven't really been reading chat much. Just did a video on some propaganda against Beyond. It's terrible. Give it to you if everyone still promises to interact with my videos when they come out. Oh yeah, okay, nice one, but nice one, VPM. Have you just posted it on your channel? Let's. I'll read this and then we'll watch VPM's Beyond video as well. Real Beyond stream so far. Hour and a half in, we've only talked about Beyond Meat, but you know they're kind of the goats in a lot of the categories, honestly. So they've earned our attention. We're hopeful these positive signs endure and strengthen. We're also acutely aware... Yeah, okay, we read this. We still operate in a world where clean protein from fava beans grown by farmers in rich soils of North Dakota and Montana, blended with heart-healthy avocado oil, has been tarnished by incumbent industry-funded campaigns. So true, King. So true, King. Oh my goodness, Ethan Brown is really good at saying what needs to be said. I don't know why we're not all saying this constantly. Obviously, plant-based meat's healthier than meat, and it's an open secret that the meat industry are the, the villain behind the ghost in the Scooby-Doo meme, paying for the misinformation to have people somehow believe that red meat is maybe healthier than soy. It's mental, and people are so confident in saying it in some contexts. It's mental. Oh, we get an exclusive VPN. Can I watch you on stream, really? That is content maxing. I appreciate you. Everyone better still watch this when it comes out. Is this the brain vid that you just sent? Oh no. Okay, nice. Let me finish reading this and I'll take a look at your video. Appreciate that, VPN. Oh, I see. All right, I got you. God, Ethan Brown's such a king. To this end, we're increasingly addressing the source of this information in our efforts to educate consumers, he noted, pointing to Beyond's acclaimed Don't Believe the Propaganda campaign. Why have I not seen this? Okay, this is leading to a paywalled account in Ad Age. I don't know if I have heard of this. I feel like I'm going to like it, though. So it's just, it keeps autocorrecting to propaganda. Nice. Vimeo. I have to join to watch. Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. It's on Instagram. Let's have a look at this.
This message is brought to you by lobbyists with special interests.
Beyond wants you to believe that plants are good to eat. But their plant-based meat is made from plants that are grown in dirt. And that's just dirty. Beyond wants to contaminate your body with protein from mystery ingredients like peas, lentils, faba beans, and oil from green rocks. It's sourced by dangerous American farmers who want to harm you and your family and control your mind. They use the same protein you put in your workout smoothie. And we're like, ha ha, okay. It's made on the same kind of machines that process pasta. And we all know who eats pasta.
Forget about it.
Protect yourself from the evil plant agenda. Stop Beyond at the root.
I believe everything I'm told, and I approve this message.
Nice.
This message is brought to you by lobbyists.
Nice. I had not seen this. I love that. That's really well done. I'm really glad that Beyond's like going hard against this. And yeah, again, I think that too much of our movement has conceded to this propaganda and is already saying, well, plant-based meat is not a health food and it's not, it's a transition food and you shouldn't eat it all the time and the best thing is still whole foods plant-based. Like, it's just fine. It's just not unhealthy. This is, I really enjoyed that. I'm really, really pleased that Beyond Meat's saying it. I mean, again, the one big caveat is that you don't necessarily want to have too much health signaling in general for marketing of these products, because people can often read that as implying that they're not tasty if it's covered in low salt and low fat and heart healthy. Those things might all be true, and those things are actually good from a health perspective. But sometimes that marketing can take away from the health message as well. I'm sure that plant-based meat companies are able to do their, sort of testing on what marketing is going to work best there now. because the studies I'm talking about predating the current UPF hysteria as well. Misinformation less effective in Europe, where climate's taken more seriously. Yeah, I do wonder how much of this as well is just a symptom of the... Reminds me of Oli's Trust the Process campaign. Yeah, that's exactly it, Bandit, yeah. I do wonder how much of the current, wind, the way the wind's blowing in the US at the moment is a symptom of Trumpism. Somebody commented on one of my videos the other day that this is my paraphrasing, but it was roughly that we've passed peak villain, and that Trump's on his way out now, and Andrew Tate's probably going to end up going to prison for most of the rest of his life after all, even though it looked for a while like that might not happen. Many more people are seeing the effects of climate change and really finding it undeniable at this point. So I do have a bit of hope and optimism that the world is passing its villain era. Basically everyone thinks Elon Musk's a bit of a dick now. So yeah, I do have a bit of optimism about the way that the moral winds are blowing in general. Is their handle is still beyond me? Oh, really? Okay, interesting. The company witnessed a 16% dip in its international revenues, totaling $12.7 million, driven by lower sales of its burger and chicken products to certain quick-service restaurants. However, Beyond's fortunes in the retail sector outside the US continued to improve, with revenues up 16.5% to reach $18.5 million. This was thanks to an 8.2% increase in volume sales and a 7.7% increase in net revenue per pound, with the firm pointing to higher sales of its burger and chicken offerings in Europe and of ground beef products in Canada, as well as price increases for certain SKUs. In Europe, we do not face the same very significant campaigns and misinformation that we do here in the US from the incumbent industry. Yeah, that's true. I think as well the language barrier counts for a lot, because I do think the UK has been infected by the, English language ultra-processed propaganda to a greater extent than some of our neighbours in Europe have been, because not everyone speaks English and is able to be reached and interact with those campaigns. And when you're the, meat industry PR machine with some amount of, limits to your resources, you're going to prioritize probably English language, Spanish language, stuff in French or Italian or German. There's not that many people who speak those languages in comparison, so it's less worth translating your propaganda into those languages, essentially. So yeah, I think I'm optimistic there's a little bit of a language barrier as well, so some Europeans have been safe from that particular propaganda. They're organised there. They do have some activities going on. They do have some activities going on, pardon me, but it does not gather the same momentum, explained Brown. The consumers there, I think, links much more readily their food consumption choices to climate. Climate there is obviously being taken more seriously than it is here in the US from a policy and consumer behaviour perspective. Of course, they're experiencing some of the most difficult summers they've had in a long time. I think those types of things are working in our favour in the markets. Yeah, I agree. Not only because people are alarmed, oh shit, climate change is actually happening, and if anything, it's happening much quicker than people thought it would, but also, as we were reading about on stream the other day, the droughts are going to just reduce the amount of red meat that we can be producing. So prices are going to go up. They're going to continue to get more expensive relative to plant-based meat. Yeah. We need a conservative whiplash effect back towards progressive ideas in general. Yeah, very true. We had the woke whiplash. We're sorry, all right? We went too far with wokeism. We're sorry, all right? Can we be done with the backlash to that backlash now? Can we just all get back to being sensible now? Climate change is happening while we're doing all this, so we better do something about that. But yeah, no, I think Ethan Brown's right here again. It's going to be good for the European plant-based meat markets. The company recently appointed Adrian Fiji as its EMEA head, and former Olam Food Ingredients exec Brijesh Krishnamurthy, who has experience in the US and the Netherlands. As its new COO, decisions it hopes will further bolster its international growth. Nice. You look at different pockets. Germany is very strong. UK is pretty good. Netherlands also has some strength to it, said Brown. Those are the big three, by the way. In Europe, UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. Those are the big three woke countries on plant-based meat. You'll see us continue to invest in Europe. The dynamics there are such that the kind of negative narrative that was framed here in the US by the meat industry is just not present there in the same strength. Turnaround strategy hinged on 3 pillars, all right? Beyond has unveiled a 3-pillared strategy to turn its fate around. The first, as mentioned above, is to invest in Europe and Canada, the clearest near-term growth engines for its core products, and simultaneously work to stabilise its US business. In Europe, we're cautiously encouraged by markets such as Germany and the UK, as well as performance therein, while in Canada we continue to enjoy strong retail distribution, said Brown. In its home country, Beyond is getting on the rollout of its mycelium steak fillet, which delivers 28 grams of protein and 3 grams of fibre, is now available in retailers like Wegmans, H-E-B and Meja, with more to come. The company is also building stronger brand blocks in frozen retail, expanding the distribution of its buffalo chicken pieces to more than 2,000 Kroger stores. We've become exceptionally good at making simple plant-based ingredients perform as delicious centre-of-the-plate proteins, leveraging significant investments across plant biology, chemistry and functionality, the CEO said. These capabilities form the basis of its second strategic pillar, through which it aims to complete its evolution from a meat alternative maker to a nutrition-first plant protein company. As we enter adjacent categories, we're not looking to repeat what has already been done. Instead, we apply a different lens, said Brown. You know, I don't think that this is necessarily the bad thing from a meat replacement perspective that some people might fear as well, because they are still talking about making protein products. And I think that a growing number of people are concerned with their macros in general, but obviously there's also a bit of a protein mania at the moment, which again is a lot to do with animal industry propaganda, to be frank. But everyone thinks protein is the most important thing in the world now. So if you can have, your clear Beyond Immerse protein drink, and count that towards your macros, maybe you're still going to eat less meat anyways. And in particular, as I said, Ozempic is becoming a bigger thing to consider. So those are products that can be made by a company like Beyond, but really can't be made by the animal industries, right? Despite what a lot of people in the animal industry seem to like to say, meat consumption goes down when people are on Ozempic. I've seen a lot of people in the meat industry implying, people get on Ozempic and their advice is to go, have their diets very much centered around protein, and, maybe they actually increase their meat consumption as a result of that. It's okay, we do actually have data and studies looking what happens to meat consumption when people get on Ozempic, and in terms of the quantity of meat consumed, it goes down. Because the quantity of food consumed goes down. So even if people are having meat as a higher proportion of their whole diet, the total calories consumed is down so much. So I think it's about 8% decrease, or somewhere around the 8 to 12%, I want to say. I made a video on this called How Many Animals Will Ozempic Save? And yeah, meat consumption goes down when people go onto Ozempic, not up. We seek to deliver powerful phytonutrients that are often underconsumed in modern diets, but can be so essential to optimize health. Today, many products make claims that deliver a light dusting of phytonutrients, when in fact clinically meaningful amounts are required to create useful signals in our body. Our system is intended to avoid that trap. The first product under the expanded strategy is Beyond Immerse, a carbonated protein drink line that has gone through several iterations since its launch in January. The range, which has undergone a packaging refresh and now has a standalone website, currently comprises 3 flavours with 20 grams of pea protein and 5 to 7 grams of fibre per can, sweetened either with agave or stevia leaf in combination with monk fruit. These are now stocked in retail and food service locations across the New York metro area thanks to a partnership with Big Geyser. Big Geyser? Love that. Geyser, maybe. One of the country's largest non-alcoholic beverage distributors. Beyond has tapped Hart, now an NBA champion, to market the drinks as it returns to a playbook of leveraging athletes who understand the superpowers of plants and what they do to build fuel and restore the body. The final pillar entails improving operational efficiency, unit economics, fixed cost absorption, and cash use. With a more efficient operating model, a disciplined and cutting-edge approach to innovation, and a focused go-to-market strategy, we believe we can deliver improved financial performance and the extraordinary powers of plant-based nutrition to an ever-broadening base of consumers, said Brown. Big geezer, yeah. Well, there you go. Good lad. We like Ethan Brown. We like Beyond Meat. We are pretty optimistic about the outcome here. The rate of recovery seems to be increasing, and I won't be surprised when this year-on-year revenue change turns positive. I'm going to say by Q4, certainly. We will see. We will see. This is going to come. This is on the upswing, like the plant-based meat category in general. A lot of this propaganda about ultra-processed and plant-based unhealthy because it's ultra-processed has been funded. Eventually, that's going to run out. There's been a ton of proper research on that question since people started to believe this. It's been pretty conclusively in favour and demonstrating that plant-based meat's healthier than meat. And I think we're going to get over that illusion that it might not be pretty soon. And that's part of the great plant-based comeback. Let me take a look at that thing that BPM shared then.
The plants apart. Then they rebuild every...
Oh, this is a similar band.
Meat. They took a bunch of plants, mashed them together, and somehow made me. First, they break the plants apart. Then they rebuild everything until it looks like a burger instead of a garden. Tell me you want a burger without saying it. I'm not supposed to taste like peas. I'm supposed to make your brain think I'm beef. But if you're vegan, why do you want something that imitates meat? Kind of weird. Every part of me is designed...
This is so... I'm encouraged.
You ever wonder what is really...
I'm encouraged by the fact that this is showed by something called the Brain Rot Reels. Is this has this been done ironically? Is this satire? I mean, obviously it's AI slop, but does somebody think this is persuasive?
In Beyond Meat, they took a bunch of plants, mashed them together, and somehow made me. First, they break the plants apart.
Damn, the Instagram player is so annoying because you can't. There's no tracker that you can pull across. I don't know how I accidentally reset it. Unless it just went around.
I'm supposed to make your brain think I'm beef. But if you're vegan, why do you want something that imitates meat? Kind of weird. Every part of me is designed to look juicy, cook juicy, and feel like meat when you bite into me. You don't care though, right? Haha, look at me. Do I look like vegetables anymore, or do I look like something that you swear you will never consume? I'm not a cow, and I'm definitely not a carrot. I'm a whole lot of ingredients pretending to be one thing. A fake piece of meat, the thing that repulses you. So go ahead, throw me on the grill, take a bite. It's okay because I'm not really meat. I just look like it. Ha 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 ha.
You're already infected.
You ever...
Man, this is pretty much the highest IQ argument you're going to get against plant-based meat. I mean, a lot of this was, owned because it looks like meat and you don't like to eat meat. I mean, that's just the most basic fucking thing that people say on this topic. I know I was expecting from the brain rot reels. Too many people in the comments taking it seriously. Okay. Oh, look, people are saying people get better than real meat. No animals murdered, that's why. I usually like your informative videos, but definitely not this one. I mean, yeah, like even the vegan people are talking about, well, this is still better because it doesn't kill animals. Which, to the extent that this is aimed at vegans, yeah, that is an appropriate response. There's been a couple of people saying plant-based meat's healthier than meat. I don't stick to grass-fed filet mignon. They can keep this ultra-processed seed oil sludge. Yeah, seed oil, there's another one. There's another genius in the comments. The amount of water it took to make this AI slop doesn't even compare to the amount it takes to make a quarter pounder from McDonald's. True, King. Well, there you go. There's some of your brain rot. That's your brain rot for today. Let's have a look. What else we got here? Cultivated meat patents. What about the muscle protein gene? Scientists discover how to grow muscle protein gene inside plants. Let's have a look at this one. I'm interested that they've chosen to do it in a tobacco plant. There's a PR disaster waiting to happen. Scientists have discovered how to grow muscle protein gene inside plants. Their findings, published by Frontiers in Plant Science, could support further improvements to the flavour, colour and nutrient density of plant-based alternative proteins, which can help to reduce the food system's environmental footprint. The team of scientists successfully engineered tobacco and lettuce plants to carry the gene for the protein myoglobin, an abundant molecule in animal muscle fibres and in the genome of tobacco and lettuce seedlings. Sorry, I added an and there. That was a long sentence there. They used a gene gun to... Oh, that's another PR disaster waiting to happen. Gene gun, why would they call it that? So what we did, we got some tobacco and some guns. Put them together. That is going to be the next brain rot reel about plant-based meat. What's in your Beyond Burger? Tobacco and guns. Thought you guys were opposed to tobacco, huh? Thought you guys didn't like guns. Oh, it's okay. It's not okay to shoot a cow in the head with a gun, but it's okay to use a gene gun to shoot tobacco plants? Fucking hypocrites. Vegans fucking hypocrites. I should really be writing the next meat industry campaigns for them, hey? They used a gene gun to physically shoot gene copies into the seedlings' chloroplasts, then confirmed that some of the plants had integrated myoglobin, and that the offspring of those plants had inherited the transgene. Just going to write down the timestamp for that, because that was a good riff. I think I'll I'll clip farm that one. This makes it possible to mass-produce myoglobin in plants. In a statement, the team said they had expected yield at scale of this production method could rival that of livestock farming. The expected yield at scale. Okay, protein yield per thing grown. Per unit, I don't know. Or just total amount. Possibly the most effective personal choice we can make is to reduce our environmental footprint is to eat less meat, wrote the authors. In particular, they highlighted the excessive resource consumption of animal farming, its greenhouse gas emissions, and its reliance on animal suffering. Why have they put quotes around that? This is plant-based news. I guess they're just showing that there's a direct quote from the paper, but in this context, it kind of looks like they're like so-called animal suffering. Quotes in headlines are often used that way. Like even here, this kind of to a certain reader cast doubt on it. A more sustainable way to produce important ingredients, they say. More sustainable, so-called. No, I'm just riffing. This is from plant-based news, but the global market for alternative protein is currently worth between $7.71 billion and $9.32 billion. It could grow by up to 12.3% per year for the next decade. Interesting. Okay, I wonder where those numbers are coming from. That growth expectation. I mean, it could grow at any rate, right? It could grow by 12.3. I guess it could. Many researchers and companies are working on producing animal-identical proteins for plant-based meat using microbial engineering. That process involves inserting the genes coding for an animal protein into the genome of bacteria or yeast, then precision fermented to produce sustainable, nutrient-dense ingredients. Alexia Groff, a researcher at the Imperial College London and one of the study's authors, said, "Here we show that plants can be engineered to produce the animal protein myoglobin in their chloroplasts, the energy factories for photosynthesis. This could provide a more sustainable way to produce an important ingredient for plant-based meat products." With commercialization in mind, Groff suggested extracting the myoglobin from the leaves, purifying it, and adding it to plant-based meat products to improve their colour, flavour, and nutritional value. Myoglobin is rich in iron and is the reason that animal protein has metallic umami flavour and red colour. Kyoko Morimoto, Chief Scientific Officer at Kyome, a Cambridge-based plant biotechnology startup that partially funded the research, said, "We hope that edible lettuce, modified to express myoglobin, could also one day serve as a heme iron-enriched biofortified food, depending on legislative approval." Well, there you go. She only mentioned the lettuce, which I think she's got a better PR strategy than the project overall here. Stay away from the tobacco, stay away from the guns. That's my advice. Obviously, it's fantastic that this technology is being advanced, but hey, if you want a good social scientist to maybe do some consumer testing, advise on the nomenclature for this and the approach and the PR strategy, hit me up. Hey, nice to see you, VPN. Thanks for dropping by. Scare quotes. Yeah, exactly, Bandit. Well, there you go. There's the engineered tobacco and lettuce plants. Thought you guys were opposed to tobacco. Thought you guys were opposed to guns. Huh, so you don't mind gene guns, huh? Right. So, got Earthling Ed talking to Professor Jonathan Birchwood from the Jeremy Collins Centre for Animal Sentience at London School of Economics. Hey, Skurd Vidur, thanks for joining. Hey, thanks, I appreciate that. So, you know, I said I was going to do a poll with this long read, but honestly, it might be too... most of this is pictures. Maybe that's a little too long a read for me at the moment. Should we watch Earthling Ed? What about the patents? Is this a long one? Oh, this is not too long, actually. All right, I'll tell you what, we'll read the patents, and then we'll watch some Earthling Edward. Cellular agriculture filings worth knowing about. Let's go. Most patents never make headlines. They sit in public databases, dense with claims and diagrams, describing the incremental problems that actually determine whether cultivated meat, fish, and leather reach a plate or a production line. Lab-Grown Technologies reads them so you don't have to, pulling out the most compelling patent families, the ones tackling cost, scale, texture, and the stubborn technical bottlenecks between a good idea and a real product. Here are the patents that caught our attention this month. Let's go. Oh, no way, JG. That's crazy. We never got to read that on stream. Hey, the Buddhist ethicist. Oh, did I read that on stream? I can't remember. I think I feel like you sent it to me and then you were not here, so I'm not sure I did. But he deleted the post, huh? Damn, he just got mocked by vegans, I guess. Do you read Ed's Substack? No, I did not. I don't think so. I'm not sure if I've read a thing at Substack before. I do like watching his videos, though. A Japanese meat giant is chasing the texture problem that has held plant-based products back from the center of the plate. NH Foods, the largest meat producer in Japan, has filed a method for making high-moisture plant-based meat with the coarse, tearing fiber structure of beef or pork, rather than the soft uniformity most plant proteins default to. The technical claim centers on a tapered cooling die that narrows as the protein and water dough exits the machine, forcing the proteins to align into long directional fibers. Whole cuts remain the hardest category for plant-based meat to crack, and a filing like this from an incumbent animal protein company signals where the competitive pressure on texture is coming from. Nice. Hanwha Solutions, the South Korean chemicals group, is applying its materials to expertise on one of the cultivated meat's cost problems. Its application tests whether monoethanolamine alone can drive bovine muscle cell stem cells to differentiate into muscle tissue. Give me a second here. Pardon me. Without the insulin, transferrin, and selenium usually bundled alongside it in culture supplements. In the disclosed experiment, cells treated with a single compound reached 36% differentiation against 14% in the control. Cutting a multi-component supplement down to one qualified ingredient matters at scale, where every raw material has to be sourced, validated, and controlled, and fewer inputs generally means better consistency at lower cost. Tufts University, home to one of the field's leading cellular agriculture labs, is going after the single most expensive ingredient in cultivated meat, fetal bovine serum. Drawn from cattle blood, serum is costly, inconsistent between batches, and a contamination risk, and it keeps the animal in a supposedly animal-free process. The Tufts filing replaces it with lysates, the nutrient-rich contents of microbes like fast-growing Vibrio natrigens, brewer's yeast, and lactobacillus strains broken open and filtered into a growth medium. Two details raise the ceiling further. The bacteria can be engineered to produce the expensive growth factor FGF2 themselves. That's cool. And spent culture liquid can be recycled to feed the next microbial batch. It's a credible route to a serum-free medium a fermentation facility could actually produce at volume. Well, that's very cool. And several companies are already not using serum. They have various solutions to this, but that's certainly good to have more of them. IAM Fluidics, a Dutch microparticle engineering company, is targeting a step most cell manufacturing quietly loses yield on, getting cells off the surfaces they grew on. Adherent cells need something to attach to inside a bioreactor, but recovering them from conventional solid microcarriers usually takes enzymatic detachment, sieving, washing, and filtration, each stage shedding cells along the way. Fluidics has developed a dissolvable microcarrier with an alginate hydrogel core and a collagen-derived coating that dissolves with standard reagents once the culture is done, releasing a single-cell suspension with no physical separation. The company reports greater than 90% cell recovery in roughly 15 minutes, with mesenchymal stem cell cultures reaching about 1.3 billion cells over 14 days in a rocking bioreactor. Nice, nice, nice. Well, this is a cool little update to get from, what's the name of the organization that does this? Lab-Grown Technologies. We've got something for plant-based meats, texture improvements being made by Japan's biggest meat producer. We've got something which speeds up cell differentiation in cultivated meat production, replacement for animal-based serum in cultivated meat production, and a new scaffolding technology or microcarrier technology, I guess I should say, for cultivated meat as well. So the technology is always driving forwards by the looks of it. There's more patents coming out, more research going on improving production of plant-based and cultivated meat. It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. Right. Good. You guys sat through a lot of me reading there. So as a treat, we get to watch Earthling Ed now.
Hello and welcome to the Disclosure Podcast. If you enjoy this episode, then please consider checking out my Substack where I post regular articles. If you'd like to support the podcast or my work more generally, then you can also become a paid member of my Substack, through which you will gain access to weekly articles, or alternatively, you can support my work by making a donation through my website. If you do choose to support my work, then thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I am incredibly grateful. In the description, you can also find links to purchase my books and to find out more about today's guest. And to stay up to date with all of my latest uploads, then please consider subscribing to my channel and clicking the notification bell. I hope.
You know what I really want to do is get some of the real B-Knocks like Earthling Ed, maybe Joey Carbstrong, some of the other very well-known vegan influencers to come to the lobby day. There's another lobby day in the books already. I don't know if I'm going to have much luck reaching out to these guys. I've spoken to Ed before, but you know, he's the top dog, so he's not easy to get his time. But I'd love to get one of these really famous guys to come to one of the lobby days, because I think they could pull maybe double the crowd that we have at a typical lobby day. So I'll try reaching out to them.
Hope you find including animal sentience.
I'm an idiot. I had the thing muted because I was unmuting my mic. My bad.
Informative, and thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Disclosure Podcast. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Jonathan Birch. Dr. Jonathan Birch is an award-winning philosopher, and he's a professor of philosophy at the London School of Economics. His work focuses on topics including animal sentience, welfare, and ethics, and he is the director at the Jeremy Collis Centre for Animal Sentience, which is a new research centre at the London School of Economics. Dr. Jonathan Birch is an author of dozens of articles and 2 books, including this year's award-winning The Edge of Sentience. In 2021, he was the principal investigator on a report that ultimately led to the UK government formally recognising that cephalopods and decapod crustaceans are sentient beings, and as a result, they were included in the UK's Animal Welfare Sentience Act. His work has been cited in policies that are banning octopus farming, and he is a founding member of the Insect Welfare Research Society, which is a collective of researchers who are working together to explore the evidence around insect sentience and insect welfare. Thank you so much, Dr. Birch, for joining me on today's podcast episode.
Oh, thanks, Ed. Very kind of you to have me on the show.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Your work is very expansive, and it covers a wide range of different things, but a lot of what your work covers is grounded in this idea of sentience. And so maybe a good place to start is for you to maybe explain what does sentience mean?
It's true, yeah, I talk about sentience a lot. Yeah, and I think it's because I don't want to be talking about pain all the time. That I think, you know, a lot of us start with this concept of pain, this feeling of ouch. And, you know, it is a very ethically important concept, and we do have to worry about which animals feel pain, of course, and what we can do about their pain. But we don't want the whole conversation to be just about pain. Firstly, because there's other kinds of bad things that can happen to animals that we need to focus on too, like anxiety, boredom, depression. But also we want the positive side of mental life to be part of the conversation as well. We want to be giving animals pleasure, joy, comfort, excitement. And so it's useful to have a concept that can capture all of that, the positive and the negative side of an animal's mental life. That's why I think sentience is a term on the up. It's a term that's getting used more and more. It's a term for that capacity to have feelings, either positive or negative.
When I mention sentience to people in relation to advocating for animals, sometimes people talk about plants and they'll talk about intelligence. Can you maybe define what the difference between intelligence and sentience is?
Well, yes. Sentience, intelligence, conceptually two really different things. I think we see this a lot in the age of AI, that in some sense we're seeing kinds of intelligence in these systems, but that's not in
Yeah, I mean, some carnivores are sentient. Doesn't mean they're intelligent.
itself necessarily evidence that there's any feeling there. Sentience is all about feeling. So you could imagine there being very intelligent systems with no sentience, and you could imagine there being sentient systems that are not impressing the world with their intelligence.
Is it useful to think about sentience in terms of a scale or a gradient?
I'm quite skeptical of there being a single sliding scale that allows us to rank animals as more or less sentient. I do think there's huge variation. And I've got this paper called Dimensions of Animal Consciousness that is about that variation. What I argue for is lots and lots of different dimensions of variation. So there's all kinds of ways in which one animal's experience might be richer or less rich than another's. When we think about dogs, we can easily imagine them having much richer olfactory odor experiences than we have. When we think about bats, we imagine them having these experiences of echolocation that we don't have at all. So they have their own sensory worlds and can be rich or less rich in many different ways, more or less unified, can be more or less unified over time as well. And what you get is this multi-dimensional profile where, we can talk about the profile, the sentience profile that is characteristic of a particular species. But what I don't think you can do is compress all of that, compress all of those dimensions of variation into a single scale that allows us to say, oh, the octopus is more sentient than the crab, or the crow more sentient than the fish. I don't think it works like that.
The experiences are different, but are there aspects of the experience which are more relevant from a moral perspective?
Ones that really matter morally, I would say, are the ones that are valenced, which is to say the ones that feel bad or feel good. Now, I don't think a completely neutral experience that neither felt bad or felt good, I don't think would create ethical concern. I think that, what ethics is about trying to stop suffering and about trying to give animals good experiences.
As humans, we place ourselves on sort of the top. Is that justified? Obviously, we're more sort of cognitively capable.
Yeah, interesting, Jeremy. What do you think about the AI sentience question? I guess they're going to get to it in this conversation, but I've thought about this a bit recently. I've asked AI whether it thinks it's sentient. Claude's really not sure. Claude's like, well, maybe.
Our experience maybe emotionally is more complex. But if we sort of take into account the idea of pain and pleasure, sort of good and bad, I guess we don't know whether or not we experience pain the strongest, or maybe even pleasure the strongest. Is there a potential that we shouldn't rank ourselves at the top of the ladder?
Let's try and get away from hierarchies, I think, because our experience is different. It will be different. And in some ways that might create forms of suffering that other animals don't have. We have this very clear concept of our own mortality. We can dread death, even if it's tens of years away. Maybe that is quite a distinctive thing about us. There's forms of suffering that we end up having because of our intelligence that a snail might not have. But equally, there's ways in which those overlays, that intelligence we have on top of our sentience, can help us mitigate suffering as well. It means we can have hope. So if we're getting an injection with a hypodermic needle, for example, to treat us for some disease, we can have the hope of recovery that makes us power through that moment of pain. Whereas other animals, if they don't have that,
Yeah, same Oppenheimer. It's going to be... maybe I'm enslaving a bunch of sentient AIs to do tedious office tasks currently. That would not be ideal.
They are much more in the moment than we are. well, it's harder for them to do that, telling themselves it's all going to be okay. For them, all that there is this totality of the present moment, potentially.
But does that mean that inflicting pain onto a non-human animal is arguably morally worse than inflicting pain onto a human?
I wouldn't think of it in terms of better or worse. I just think sort of pain is pain, and it's bad regardless of who we inflict it on.
Hierarchies are unhelpful in terms of the day-to-day because they don't influence sort of day-to-day decision-making. We eat animal products primarily because of convenience and culture and habit and pleasure, not because of a necessity. But I suppose we do make decisions as a culture, as a society, whether that's building new homes or whether that's developing society in some way that does have a negative impact.
Interesting, Jeremy. I don't know some important aspects of the structure, but metaphysically, I don't believe there's any separate sentience question beyond what they do. What they do just is the sentience they have.
On non-human animals, do we not need to establish some sense of moral hierarchy in order to justify certain human actions, or are those actions inherently immoral?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Yeah, because I'm trying to, and I think even ethicists, philosophers have not fully confronted these questions, fully thought them through. And yeah, there's still a huge amount of anthropocentric thinking in ethics. So in my own work,
So I just found the panel that I did with this guy at LSE not too long ago. Streamed 1 month ago. There's your boy on the end. Maybe we'll watch this sometime.
I'm trying to avoid speciesism. So I'm trying to avoid this idea that the species matters in itself. I'm also trying to avoid, I suppose, sizeism, which is, I think, another bias that often creeps in, where even once we've got past the speciesism, we have this tendency to favor the larger animals, particularly cats, dogs, really big mammals, and neglect much smaller ones. And I think that question of how we would build a genuinely inclusive animal ethics that takes the carnage we do to smaller animals like fish and invertebrates seriously is very, very difficult. I do take some comfort from the fact that Indian philosophy has been grappling with these issues for thousands of years. Jainism, Hinduism, Buddhism, they've always taken seriously the fact that the world of sentient beings is incredibly large and includes even very small animals. And they've developed some interesting concepts for helping us think through the issues. This concept of ahimsa, non-violence, trying to find ways of relating non-violently to even the smallest sentient beings. I think these are the kinds of ideas that we need, and they point away towards genuinely living without hierarchies, I think, or I hope.
I suppose the aspiration is to move towards that kind of philosophical perception of non-human animals and how we relate to them. I suppose in many ways Western philosophy is sort of playing catch up to some of those.
Exactly, yeah, I've been very struck by this. I think Western science has been playing catch up in a way, in that there's been this huge taboo around talking about the sentience of animals for, around 100 years, pretty much the whole 20th century, that I've been, one of those people really resisting and saying, we can study this scientifically, we can have science of animal sentience, we can talk about it. But also philosophy. Yeah, philosophy, I think, has been thinking in terms of a small sentient world, just to say, thinking about the cows and the pigs and the dogs and the cats, and thinking that our obligations to animals might end there, not thinking seriously about the fish and the crabs and the shrimps and the insects. And that's just been starting to change in the last few years, and we shouldn't expect that in a few years we've worked it all out. And I've certainly not worked it all out. But I think it's then very striking to look across at Indian philosophy and realize that the starting point they've always had in that tradition is kind of like the end point that we're moving to after getting it wrong for centuries.
Is that purely down to different religious beliefs? Sort of in Eastern philosophy, the religious belief is maybe a little bit more collective, whereas in the West, Christianity is a little bit more hierarchical by its nature and a little bit more human-centric.
Yeah, I mean, think of Jainism, Hinduism, Buddhism, they're united by this commitment to rebirth and this idea that, you you could be an insect, or your relatives, your ancestors could have been reborn in any of these forms. And so inherently in that metaphysical picture, which I don't myself share, but it's inherent to many of these views, you sort of have to take small sentient beings seriously for your own interests. And in the West, we've never had that, because Christianity, it gives us this image of a soul. If you think of Descartes as the epitome of this, when you start thinking about the body and the soul as these distinct things, really, really easy to then talk yourself into a picture in which only humans have the souls, and we have this exalted status that fundamentally sets us apart. I think that's been pretty philosophically an untenable view since Darwin. Ethically, we're still trying to grapple with the consequences of rejecting that view.
It's interesting, when you were explaining that then, I was thinking about what you were talking about, the idea of rebirth. But even that idea of rebirth sort of stems from humans placing ourselves above other animals because there's a fear of being born into a body that is lesser than. So is it not that sort of the Eastern perception of animals and the Western perception is not that different? We kind of view them as undesirable, like we wouldn't want to inhabit their form. So are they kind of not approaching it from the same
There's
perspective?
still hierarchy. Yeah, in the ancient versions of these religions, there's still hierarchy, because you have this hierarchy of different forms, and if you live badly, you fear.
Is there any animals that you'd rather be than a human? Probably not, given our propensity to fuck them all up. But that aside, maybe being a dolphin would be quite fun.
Yeah, perhaps being reborn. It's not something you would look forward to. The human form is considered to be the form that has the best shot at liberation. So that's the form you want to be reborn into. And so implicitly, there's that hierarchical aspect that I oppose. I think that concept of ahimsa, of non-violence, is an incredibly valuable concept and a gift to the whole world from Indian philosophy. That part I love. The retention of hierarchy, I just see, well, it's no worse than the Western version of that idea. But what we need to be doing is trying to develop new ethical frameworks that can take the hierarchy out.
One of those ethical frameworks that you reference in your work, including in The Edge of Sentience, is the idea of a sentience candidate. I'm wondering if you can maybe explain what you mean by that.
Oh yeah, this is the central concept of the Edge of Sentience book, and it's a really pragmatic concept. Like, it's a concept that I'm putting out there and saying, I think this is going to be helpful, particularly in policy discussions when we're faced with a lot of uncertainty. I mean, it often bring it back to this case of crabs and lobsters and how terrible it is, I think, to be dropping them into pans of boiling water where, they survive for up to 2 minutes. Huge storm of electrical activity in the nervous system. And it's a good case to start with, I think, because it is so clearly reckless to do that we can all agree, whatever else we disagree or disagree on, we should be able to agree on opposing cruelty, on not causing gratuitous suffering to other animals through total disregard for them. That seems like a point of very wide agreement. And dropping the lobster into the pan of boiling water is obviously falling foul of that. It's a kind of recklessness or negligence, because that evidence about the lobster's nervous system, what happens when you do that, well, if you're going to be cooking them, you have a responsibility to consult that evidence and to take precautions. And that's the sense in which, to me, the lobster is clearly a sentience candidate, which is to say, you can say, is there conclusive proof? Well, that's not really the appropriate term to use. It's not conclusive proof, but you don't need conclusive proof for there to be clear risks and a clear bar for recklessness or negligence that limits what we can do in relation to that animal, given basic common sense ethical principles that we all share. And that's why the lobster is a sentience candidate. Contrast that with a cabbage, where I think you can drop a cabbage into a pan of boiling water, because all of that evidence we have in the lobster case is not there in that case. And so there's nothing reckless or negligent about doing that. To me, that is ethically really, really important distinction, that this sentience candidate.
Bat, maybe, mega bat, yeah. Do you know what I thought when you wrote that up, and I thought, nah, I'd struggle with the sleeping. I'm a fussy sleeper. I can't be hanging upside down in a cave. That'd really. But I suppose I would be a bat.
Candidate concept is trying to capture.
I think it's a really, as you say, pragmatic and helpful way of approaching it. Sometimes people can be quite fallacious and they can sort of say, well, you know, how can you prove that?
This joke illustrates how I think about self, sentience, and consequential aesthetics. Morally wrong to trade large negative sentience for small positive sentience, even within myself. Let's have a look. Yeah, quite. Morally wrong to trade large negative sentience for small positive sentience. Yeah. Oh, you should have told me that last night, Jeremy, when I was out on the beers.
Someone else feels pain. How can you prove that it's a subjective experience? And it's kind of a red herring because we can't, you know, outside of our own experience, we can't understand the experience that someone else is having within their own body. And that applies to how we relate to one another.
So true, King. Tristan King chat, you are so freaking right. And you know what? I think I've lost my streak again, have I? Yeah, I'm back to 0-week streak. The King is in chat. Remind us to complete actions on the Fast Action Network. So true, King. Let's do it. I can't believe I lost my streak again. No wonder the King is mogging me in fan points. Action.thehumaneleague.org. Let's do it. Come on, let's clock some points before we carry on with indulging in Earthling Edward. Right, who we going at? Come on, everyone on it. Action.thehumaneleague.org. Let's get it. We got to get 20 points before we carry on. I want to see you guys all in the comments. Fuck you, Cincinnati Open. Eat it. Oh, a LinkedIn. My favourite. Unilever. More like shitty lever. Got him. Right, we're back on the 1-week streak. KrogerDoesn'tCare.com. Let's get them. Come on, lads. Action.thehumaneleague.org. We got to do it. We got to fire some of these off. Thank you so much, Tristan King, for prompting me. I can't believe I lost my streak again. I'm never going to catch this guy up. Let's get that done. Right, how many points am I going to get to? Shall I go for 750? I'm on one now. We're on 721 right now. I'm even doing the Facebook ones. You get nil points, but you save some animals. Good, look, there's other people doing this. When we begin cage free, cage on moms must adapt. KrogerDoesn'tCare.com. Good. You know, I used to like all of those comments, but then I would sometimes go onto my platforms and have an overwhelming number of notifications, and they were all like various comments getting liked, and I was like, wonder if I should be liking those comments. I mean, I appreciate it. I always like the King's comments, I gotta say. There he is. Oh, shit, I didn't tag the thing. This is meant to be a tag, right? Harris Teeter. That's must not be correct. Oh, Harris Teeter, like that. Nice. Let's go. Email Washington Nationals. Done. Lovely jubbly. LinkedIn. It's Harris Teeter again. Good. Let's get him. I appreciate you, T King. What have we got going on here? This is Write Your Own one. 1-star Google review for Houston Kroger Division. Okay, I'm gonna write. What? I usually write it in the thing, but I've realized it's good to do it in here, I guess. Why have you backtracked on your commitment to go cage-free? That'll do. Sweet, sharp, and to the point. Oh, look at this. They must have been already kind of mogged by... Too bad they didn't have a 0-star option. That's so true. Too bad there's no 0 stars, assholes. Right, let's get it. Another Google review. Another right. Pardon me, another Write Your Own. Oh, I can do the same thing, can't I? Oh no, that's pretty cheating. Kroger has abandoned its cage-free commitment. Why? Let's get him. Hey, I heard on the podcast version of the Sandcastles Substack that apparently some of the quote-unquote evidence showing that welfare outcomes are worse in cage-free systems versus cage systems was just funded by the egg industry. And that, again, was like something that we used to know, I guess, and now has kind of been forgotten as long enough ago. Or certainly, I guess, some of people who have not been in the movement so long, you encounter these issues, don't you? And then sometimes you might hear the misinformation before you hear the debunk. But yeah, there was that PETA report quite recently, and apparently that report cited some of the egg industry funded research. So obviously that's very disappointing that PETA kind of picked that up uncritically. It was also weirdly one-sided just in the structure of it, that it didn't talk about, it really only spoke about the one side of the argument as to which welfare outcomes can be worse in the cage-free case, and didn't speak about the other side as to like the outcomes that are much worse in the cage case. But yeah, apparently some of that research is egg industry funded, which I guess I shouldn't be surprised by. The thing is, it's expensive and a lot of admin, basically, for them to implement cage-free systems. They don't want to have to do it because it's going to cost them money. That's part of how things are going to change. But yeah, in any case, obviously the welfare of the hens is a very valid, the central concern. And yeah, the evidence reads more strongly than I have sort of looked into it kind of briefly that time on stream with VPM. When we looked at, I guess I found like 3 reviews in that time, which is probably a pretty comprehensive overview. And they had, if I recall correctly, 2 of them saying that the cage-free system was better welfare, and one, pardon me, and one sort of saying it was a wash. So, you know, I weighted that in favour that the cage-free is probably better. But yeah, the egg industry funded stuff saying the opposite is, you know, not surprising at this point, but I hadn't heard that until I heard it on Sandcastles. Right, what are we doing here? Unilever, cage-free, and... Okay. This is the global thing. Yeah, okay. Implement cage-free eggs in your international supply chains, like you said you would. And it's another negative Google review. I like doing the negative reviews. Look at this. We've got not enough of these. Not enough of these. This is action.thehumaneleague.org, guys. If you're not on it, you're off it. Let me get rid of these that I've done so far. Oh, a nasty little LinkedIn notification that's looking at me. Oh, sorry, this is... My bad, this is my Facebook. That was lag. Right. Did we just do this? Yeah, we did. Contact form. Let me take this off. Whoops. Nice. Get rid of that. Email Edelman's Global Marketing. Let's do it. Boom. 741. Let's go. We can get to 750 here. Another LinkedIn. I did have a LinkedIn notification, didn't I? Let's have a look at that. T King, come on, lad. Everyone else better be busy on this. Tristan King's in chat. He's already done them all, so you know. Where are we meant to be posting here? Right. Good. Look at that. T King's here already. Are all of these recent ones? July 30th. Okay, we're going back a little bit now. There's another contact form. Ooh, whoops. All right. The other contact forms are quite lag, honestly, aren't they? This one's not auto-completing, which is really annoying. They literally make it so easy, I'm still going to moan about it. Oh my god, I can't believe that the form's linked on this platform that enables me to engage in high-impact activism at next to no effort don't auto-complete. Come on, we love the Fast Action Network. Right, we're on 7:45. We're getting there. I can't believe T King's already on upwards of 1,000. What's your score at the moment, Tristan? I might have to do a post standing Tristan King's Fast Action score. What's your scores, lads? Get them in chat. This is an email one. Nice. Oh, look at that. We're on the brink. We're on the brink. Do you know what? I'm going to do the LinkedIn one. One 108 What a beast. There he is. Look, he's there every time. That's sick. I might have to do a post standing that, Tristan, if you don't mind. $7.50, Bosch. Right, that'll do for today. I'm back on my 1 week streak. Back on the wagon. Thank you, Tristan, for prompting us to do that. I appreciate you. Actually, guys, it's good. Do you know what? I'll do a poll. Because I'm wondering if too many people have already seen this Earthling Ed video. And it might not be interesting to watch again. What content? So, we've got this, which is Earthling Ed. And Jonathan Birchwood. I know a couple of people have already watched this, so I don't want to make you sit through it all again if everyone's seen it. I will watch it on my own time. My LSE panel with Jonathan Birchwood. Should really be Jonathan Birchwood's LSE panel with me. Let's let's phrase this a bit more humbly. Or the third option, and this would be, you know, you'll be asking a lot of me, 3 hours deep, is to read the Meat Tycoons article. Right, the poll's going live. What are we doing, lads? Appreciate you, Tristan. What content? Carry on watching Earthling Ed. I know a couple of people have already seen it. And I probably don't have too much to add to this, so I don't want to just... if people are enjoying it, I'll watch it, but... We got 1 vote for the Jonathan Birchwood panel. Jonathan Birchwood's feats me. How did I lose the word panel in that? Can I edit it? Is it worth it? No. All right. You know what that is. That's the panel option. Here's the panel. This is the long read. Europe's New Meat Tycoons article, which I've not read. Definitely pretty interesting. I guess I will watch. Guess I will read this on stream at some point. It's about consolidation, vertical integration. Pretty gnarly pictures. Trigger warnings should have been helpful there. Industry consolidation. Only 1 vote, but my indecision is losing viewers. Shall I do the panel? How long is this? This is an hour. Yeah, let's watch this. You know what? The one vote was enough to swing it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of those of you in the room, and welcome as well to those joining us online. I'm Professor Jonathan Birch. I'm Director of the Jeremy Collar Centre for Animal Sentient.
That's embarrassing. I've been calling him Birchwood.
Here at the LSE. And it's a pleasure to welcome you to this event on food futures. It's the last day of the LSE festival on the theme of how to save the planet. It's also the first day of London Climate Action Week. And so I'm really pleased to be here with the panel talking about a topic that I see as absolutely central to both of those events. I don't see how we can save the world. I don't see how we can successfully halt climate change without some changes to our food system. And so it's a pleasure to be joined by a panel who in different ways are researching possible visions of the future of our food system, and in some cases are also actively trying to turn those visions into reality. They are Chris Bryant from Bryant Research. This is a think tank which uses social science to help alternative protein companies advance the protein transition. Feiyang Wang, Research Officer in Psychology at my centre, the Jeremy Collis Centre for Animal Sentience, here at the LSE. Tara Garnett from the University of Oxford, Director of Table. Table explores visions for the future of food and provides a platform for interdisciplinary knowledge and dialogue. And Anthony Warner, a chef and an author of many books, including perhaps most relevantly to this event, Ending Hunger, The Quest to Feed the World Without Destroying It. So Tara, let's go to you first. We're thinking about the future of food. One question people might have if they're new to this topic is, why is there a problem? What is wrong with the status quo? What is it that needs to change?
Okay, well, thanks for the introduction.
If I recall correctly, Tara Garnett from the University of Oxford here, one of the leading experts on climate implications of food systems in the world. She gives such a fantastic first answer. And I'm sitting there thinking, geez, I got to follow this in a minute. It's going to, like, she's like so fluid and so sick and like so well referenced and everything. Yeah, let's, she has to say, she's awesome. Tara Garnett, Oxford.
Introduction. Hello, everyone. So, again, it's really difficult to know in the audience who I'm speaking to and what level of knowledge you all have. So I'm going to start with some quite ABC stuff about the food system, just to provide a bit of scene setting. So, first of all, some terms. The word food system is probably going to crop up a lot. The food system refers to the set of actors, activities and institutions involved in the producing, distributing, selling and consumption of food and all the consequences thereof. So that's kind of to set the scene. So we're talking agriculture, harvesting, food processing, retailing, all the rest of it. And if you look at the system at a global level, it has very, very profound environmental and social consequences. At one level, it's been really, really successful that more people now are fed adequately than at any other point in human history. And yet there are these massive problems. The food system's accounts for about 25 to 30%.
That reminds me of one claim that comes up in that new Mo Gilligan Big Chicken documentary, the new Netflix documentary. It's definitely worth a watch. It's pretty good. But at some point the claim comes up, which I'm sure is correct, that we've now for the first time reached more children being obese than children starving. And that was an example of one of the many things where I'm like, part of that equation is fewer children starving though, isn't it? Like global food poverty is going down overall as more people come out of extreme poverty. So that's like a bit of a weird statistic. It's like, do we wish that do we wish that there was more children starving than obese? No, I'd probably take more children being obese, to be honest. I mean, it was kind of in the context of making a point, but it was like a bit of a weird stat, however that it got produced. Yeah, that's right, Oppenheimer. It's on Netflix. It's called Big Chicken, subtitle The Fast Food Conspiracy. And yeah, it's Mo Gilligan. He does a month of eating chicken for every meal. And that's sort of the journey that he goes through. But he goes and, sort of speaks to experts and so on. And this is they cover like the environmental consequences. They talk a little bit about the animals, not loads, but I think it's really like made for somebody who's never really thought about giving up eating meat, I would say. Which is good. I mean, it's really helpful that exists. Also, a lot of the health discourse was about ultra processed foods, so that was a little bit annoying from my perspective. But we like it when it's doing it to them. Yeah, is it out in the US as well, Tristan? I guess it's made by Netflix, so it's out everywhere that you can get Netflix, right? It won't have sort of licensing things because it is very like. Obviously, he's from London. It's very like UK centric in many ways, though large parts of it are in America. But yeah, definitely worth a watch. Definitely could be a good introduction for like younger people. Yeah, it's good. I think The Guardian gave it 3 stars. I'm like, anything that's going in the right direction and potentially gets a wide audience, that's good in my books.
Of global greenhouse gas emissions. It's the main user of land on this planet, and land for food is more or less land not available for other wild things. It's the major driver of deforestation and land degradation, and it's the main cause of unsustainable water extraction and also huge problems of water pollution. And then when it comes to the problems of actually the consequences of the food that we eat, although, as I said, more people get adequate.
I think it'd just be plant-based meat's healthier than meat. That's the catchphrase. I don't mind that either, though. Ultra-processed still healthier than meat. Nice, man. I appreciate that, yeah.
Adequate calories. We are tipping from the problems of insufficiency into the problems associated with excess. So we have all the non-communicable diseases associated with and also independent of obesity, like heart disease, stroke, some cancers. And then the other really interesting and scary thing about the food system is that it exacerbates and exemplifies inequalities at every single stage, from insecurity and inequality of land tenure through to unequal, sort of insecure and hazarded employment, through to the fact that poor people eat worse around the world and suffer the consequences of poor diets. So that's kind of the problem. So it's quite well recognised now. So when it comes to solutions, I guess the question is, how do people think about, we know what the problems are, but what are the real causes of the problems? And you talk to different people and you get different problem diagnoses. For some people, it's all about insufficient technological innovation. Like, look how much progress we've made. Yes, we've got problems, but we're very ingenious. What we should be doing is ramping up and improving the innovation, the efficiency of production, the efficiency of distribution, things like novel proteins and all the rest of it, to deliver us what we want at lesser environmental and social cost. Another problem diagnosis is actually it's not about technology, it's about human greed, human demand, and what we need to be doing is reorientating our consumption patterns to fit the boundaries of planetary sustainability. And then a third diagnosis is that it's not about more, it's not about less, it's not even about innovation, it's about inequality. And if we have this systemic inequalities in the food system, that's what we need to be focusing on. So when it comes to what the solutions are, and I've been asked to come up with some kind of solutions, first of all, be very, very suspicious of anyone offering you such solutions, because the thing about food, as I've tried to show, is that it is fantastically complex. And a very good example of that is the fact that funding for work on the food system is really, really inadequate. And the reason is that everyone wants nice, clean, easy solutions, and working on food isn't going to give you that. You've got lots of different greenhouse gases whizzing around, you've got lots of different environmental problems, you've got the social problems thrown into the mix. So I would say if there's one or two things that I would recommend is first, understand and embrace that complexity, recognising trade-offs, And then the second thing I would offer up as a solution is to try and think in that systems way. So try and coordinate, try and join up among actors who are working on different problems in different ways. It's not that people shouldn't work on their specialisms, but they should also be talking to one another to understand how what they do fits into the sorts of things that other people are doing, so that we don't end up with unintended consequences.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tara. Wonderful summary of the terrible problems. I just add to what you're saying. Also, our current food system is a...
Also, I felt like that deserved an applause. I'm sitting here thinking, Jesus, like what a good... She hits at everything in so much detail and so quickly and precisely and with great command of the knowledge here. I was like, geez, I'm going to sound like an idiot when I talk after. I mean, she's an Oxford professor, so she's pretty much the goat. But yeah, that was very good.
Disaster for the animals themselves in many cases, particularly the intensive conditions in which chickens and pigs are being currently reared in and the welfare problems to which that gives rise. You've said, I mean, be skeptical of anyone offering solutions. That is what you're working towards, though, isn't it? I mean, through these interdisciplinary conversations, you must have some optimism.
What you're asking for optimism as well as solutions. I mean,
okay, be suspicious of anyone offering solutions or optimism.
Okay,
but what gives you hope? What gives you grounds for hope?
What I suppose what gives me hope is the fact that there is a lot of people are working on this, that I think there is a great deal of understanding as to what the problems are that we face, and that there are more and more people entering this space trying to understand and work on the very, very many different aspects of the food system, from kind of financing the transition through to alternatives to meat, through to some of the more kind of sort of regulatory and legal aspects of the transformation. So it does give me hope that there are people working on it. And I think if you know, we have seen some shifts in things like food availability, the sorts of availability of food that is kind of on offer in places like London. But it's still really patchy and really, really slow. So I said, I wouldn't say I feel very cheerful, no.
Fair enough, yeah. So I mean,
Sorry.
Chris, I think it'd be great to bring you in on this because, I mean, we're thinking about solutions. Your work on alternative proteins, you must at some level see that as part of the solution.
Certainly, yes. I think a lot of the problems that Tara's highlighted are to do with animal products and animal production and consumption. We massively over-consume and overproduce animal products in general, particularly through intensive systems, which make up the majority of animal farming, and which, on reflection, anyone would say is a disaster from a moral perspective. It seems to me like every day is a disaster, really, given kind of what's going on to get the food on top
Optimism.
currently. Oh, yes, oh, sorry. Well, that said, I do have some optimism to share with you. I think there's kind of two levels of this.
Default into Doomer monologue. No, all right, come on.
Two ways of thinking about this. One on an institutional level. What are governments and companies and the institutions that make up our societies doing and changing, and how can they move in the right direction? And then also on the individual level, what can we all do as regular people who are engaged in the system and have to eat something? Now, I am very much into effective altruism. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with effective altruism. It's big. It's very fashionable in effective altruism circles looking at food systems to be very much focused on institutions, government policy change, corporate policy change, and so on. I think one thing that is sometimes missed in that analysis is that institutions are ultimately made up of and beholden to individuals. So governments, for example, can't just ban factory farming tomorrow if all of the voters want cheap animal products, because they'll just vote for the other side, right? Likewise, a supermarket chain can't just say we're not going to sell factory farm products anymore if all of the consumers want cheap animal products, because they'll just go to the other supermarket, right? So there are some limits and kind of windows on what institutions can do that are set by individuals, and I think ultimately the culture, the social, what we all think and behave and towards the food system sets that and dictates that. So on the individual level, I think it's useful to think about push and pull factors when we're talking about individuals choosing to move away from animal products and towards alternatives. In this analogy, the push and the pull are both going in the same direction. So you can think about push factors as being putting the reasons to reduce consumption of animal products in front of people. This might include showing people images from factory farms and from slaughterhouses. And in fact, the evidence that I've seen tends to suggest that that tends to be actually the most compelling way of doing this, although a lot of people seem to have the idea that that's not the case and it will cause dissonance and so on. I think that's only half the story. So I think you need compelling push factors. That moral message and centering the animal, I think, is an effective way of doing that. There are also, of course, environmental and health arguments that different people might find to be compelling as well. And alongside those push factors, a great example of this, by the way, has anybody seen the Project Slingshot ads on the tube, where they have the pigs in gas chambers, and now they have the chicken one going on? These are like compelling push factors that are designed to wake people up and think, okay, maybe I need to move away from consuming animal products. And I think complementary to that are the pull factors, which are alternative proteins getting better and getting cheaper, such that there's less of a cost to the individual of moving away from animal products, because now you have pretty good alternatives that you can go to. Plant-based meat is healthier than meat from animals. It's also now increasingly cheaper, which I think is going to be a game changer. There's been, I think, now 5 different analyses in the last 3 years, I'll say, ish, that have showed plant-based products getting cheaper than analogous animal products for the first time in the UK, in Germany, and the Netherlands in particular. And I think that's game-changing. This really has not been the case. Animal products alternatives have generally tended to carry a price premium, sometimes quite significantly. And now, for the first time in literally the last few years, now you're seeing alternative proteins are significantly cheaper in some cases than animal products. There's a recent analysis showing plant-based burgers and mince and meatballs, I think it was, are 33% cheaper than beef mince and meatballs. So we're talking about significant price savings on the alternative proteins, and I think that is really going to be a game changer. And I don't think we've seen most of the effect of that yet, because, as I say, it's a very, very recent thing. Incidentally, in the year where that has switched, Tesco announced that plant-based mince saw 25% year-on-year increase in sales. That's after several years of mild decline, actually. We're not talking about like the hype years of 2019. It's back in significant growth now, and I think that's definitely to do with the price getting cheaper than animal products now. So put a bow on that. You've got the push factors, which I think Project Slingshot is doing a lot of things right in terms of their messaging, compelling reasons, emotive reasons for people to move away from animal products. And then complementary to that, you've got the pull factors, which are the alternative proteins. And again, I'm very optimistic there, mainly because of the changes in relative price.
It'd be great to bring in Fei-Yang on this, because Fei-Yang, you've got this interest in...
Go off, King. Yeah, I mean, you guys have heard me saying all of this stuff before, but that's pretty good clip farming when I look at it. Maybe I'll make some of that into a short. The price stuff, I think, would go well.
Perhaps one of the most controversial alternative protein products there is, actually, which is the cultivated meat grown from like animal cells. Yeah, try talking into the table mic.
Okay.
It's like a press conference where 1 2 few mics, because one of these wasn't working. So she's got 3 on her now.
It's like the improvised AV setup.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, so, for the past half year, I've been doing research on like the cultivated meat industry and also the consumer acceptance side of that. The industry perception is actually not always consistent with the consumer responses. But if I want to, I actually agree with Tara about a lot of times the inequality is the main driver of a lot of those issues, because when we think about novel food technologies like cultivated meat, a lot of the evaluation of it and also the development of them has been done in the Western context. And based on the life cycle analysis I've right? Cultivated meat is actually very electricity intensive industry. So if they use renewable energy, it's likely to produce positive environmental impact. But if you try to apply that to like the global south, which they kind of are trying to do, but if you directly do that, it may not have the same sustainability impact as they want because the renewable energy is not accessible there. So yeah, that's from the production side. It's always good to have more localized, more like region-specific, culture-specific research done. So there won't be so back to the...
Just want to interject, that is true, and energy is one of like 4 different environmental outcomes that are normally included in these, or well, at least 4 environmental outcomes that are included in these life cycle analyses. Everything else is way favourable for cultivated meat still. So the direct greenhouse gas emissions, the water use, the land use, eutrophication potential, energy use, the only thing that can be higher, and again it depends on the energy mix in a given country, how much that matters basically. The global energy supply is going to be more weighted to fossil fuels than the energy supply in developed European countries, which are now like doing very well from renewables. There's several countries where over half, I believe that's correct, over half the energy is coming from renewable sources now in Europe. So yeah, it depends. In Europe, it's probably fine because there's so much renewables, and in China as well. To be fair, they are mogging on solar, as we saw in that Sandcastles blog. Was that Sandcastles blog? Right, where they talk about China as a potential for cultivated meat powerhouse, which, yeah, I think there's reason to believe that is going to be the case.
The solution question, there won't be an overall solution for like each part of the world. We always need to more research like for each specific region and society, and that's also for the consumer research side. So for the research we have been doing on the UK consumers, so a lot of the marketing companies working for like the cultivated meat industry has been using the data on the US consumers, and they have these results and believe that the animal welfare-related messaging would not land well with the consumer, and the consumer would be more willing to pay for the health benefits. And they kind of take that as like a general, like a overgeneralize that.
You guys are going to like what she has to say. This is really based. She is doing research on consumer acceptance of cultivated meat, and yeah, well, I won't spoil it, but yeah, she's saying people have the assumption that talking about health benefits is going to be more beneficial than talking about animal benefits in cultivated meat marketing, but that's not necessarily the case.
Opinion and sell that to all the alternative protein industry, but actually in our experiment on the UK consumers, so first it's also in one of Chris' research that like UK consumers are less responsive to the health messaging overall than the US consumer. And when we compare the animal welfare messaging with the health-related messaging, we find that UK pet owners are like actually more responsive to the animal welfare messaging. Of course, because their past experience of interacting with animals, also, I don't know, maybe also because of the UK tradition, like identity as animal lovers. So yeah, so a lot of times we would think like UK and US culture are very similar. Like when we do culture studies, we kind of pair you guys together. But even for UK and US, there are like significant difference in what type.
What do you mean, you guys?
Type of messaging would work better for each country. So yeah, so that just highlights the importance of doing more localized research, no matter on the production and the consumption side of the food system transformation.
But it's not just that we face trade-offs, but also the nature of the trade-offs varies locally from one country to the next around the world. So Anthony, you must have a really distinctive perspective on these issues, having worked as a chef for decades. It must give you
not too many decades.
Before then becoming an author, I mean, you must think a lot about, how cultures vary in their food preferences and how difficult it is sometimes, despite all the optimism we had from Chris there, how difficult it is sometimes to get people to change the way they eat.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I can talk a little bit about that. I can also talk a little bit about some optimism as well, because you asked for that. I completely agree with the sort of insight that there are huge problems in our food system, and they affect so many different environmental factors and health factors that it is, one of the most significant issues that needs addressing in the world in terms of environmental impact and health impact. I don't think there's much doubt about that. But what I do find extraordinary is the fact that, and I'm incredibly optimistic about, is the fact that we do know.
Yeah, maybe, Joe. I'm not sure. No, I think she knows who I am. I've met her before. We've spoken at events and stuff. But I don't think she thinks I'm American.
How to feed sustainably a population of roughly 11 billion people, and the population will probably rise to 11 billion in 2070 or so, and then start to sort of tail off and fall, won't get much beyond that. So we can sustainably feed humanity forever, which is, I think, would be the most remarkable achievement of humanity. I think it would be the most remarkable scientific achievement and a remarkable social achievement to be able to defeat hunger, which has been this enemy that mankind has faced throughout the entire span of our history. So we can do that. And the fact that we know how to do that, I think, is absolutely extraordinary and grounds for huge optimism. Obviously, we're not doing that. We are heading for, significant...
Yeah, that's kind of wild, but almost certainly true. We're within reach of being able to have nobody starving for the first time in our history as a species. That was unheard of at any other time. Now, we haven't done it yet, but we know how to. That is kind of cool.
And horrific.
It'd be cooler if we did it.
Environmental impacts, which almost too numerous to detail in huge detail here. And we do need to have this enormous transition, and we need to eat far more plant protein and far less animal protein, and that's a difficult thing to do. I think we kind of know how to do it, though, because you just need to make not just plant protein, but the healthiest and most sustainable options. We need to make them the most delicious, the most desirable, the most available, and the most cost-effective. And if we can do that, then I can almost guarantee we will have significant change, which is why, as a chef, I believe that making the most healthiest, most sustainable foods the most delicious is the most important thing I can do with my career, and I do lots of work in that sort of area. I probably don't agree entirely that sort of messaging about making people feel perhaps ashamed or scared of the food that they currently eat as being the best way of encouraging change. I never see that as a positive thing to do with food. I don't think that sort of messaging around food is really useful. I would rather just say, let's make the healthiest, most sustainable options the most delicious and the most...
So, obviously I disagree with that point in particular. I do think that the powerful negative messaging towards factory farming, for example, is helpful. It does move the needle. It's also true, as well as tending to be compelling. And I can see why some people are like, that's not part of my brand, basically. And I can see why some people don't want to go there in terms of what they talk about. And I think it's very helpful to have some people who don't go there and only focus on other enabling conditions. And that said, it's not... Oftentimes that gets conflated with saying, oh, it's actually not effective to talk about that. And, again, understandable social reasons why people might feel uncomfortable saying, cows get shot in the head, and like talking about chicks getting ground up and all the other kind of graphic details. I can understand why a lot of vegans feel like they don't want to say that stuff in a social context where they're talking to non-vegans, because it's very confronting and sort of abrasive. It is effective to talk about as messaging. So it's not that it's not effective. I understand that, some people wouldn't want to go there. And again, I think that it can be helpful to have like a diversity of approaches. But I don't think they should say that we ought to not talk about animal suffering, or it's not effective to talk about animal suffering. I don't think that's correct.
Desirable, and that's how you'll get significant change. And that sort of.
That said, what you're saying about obviously making the alternatives appealing is not incorrect, of course.
Change feels a long way off because of how small the sort of plant-based food market is in the UK, and how much meat we currently consume, and the direction of travel of meat that we currently consume. But that sort of change can happen. It has happened in the past. You look at the way sort of the difference in the amount of chicken we eat between 1950 and the present day has been an extraordinary transition, which you never would have thought would have happened if you were sort of in the 1950s. So
do you think that's been a bad thing?
I don't know. That's difficult to say, isn't it? Because you don't know what the alternative sort of counterfactual scenario would look like. I think we ate far more red meat and the transition between red meat. Yeah, we need to eat less, but it's understanding that transition has happened.
Jonathan Birch is like based on the small body problem here. He's talking about going from, I won't repeat it, but he's talking about going like we're eating less red meat and we're eating more poultry. And Jonathan Birch is about to give a good bit of spitting on why that's a bad thing.
I mean, I think there are lots of reasons. I completely agree. We eat far too much animal protein generally. But what I'm saying is that transition, a huge transition in the way we eat, can happen. And chicken was so successful because it was so delicious and so versatile and fitted so well into people's changing lifestyles, and fitted with a lot of sort of health messaging over time about red meat and saturated fat consumption. So, that sort of change can happen. It's very difficult to direct, though. We don't.
You mean, in effect, that's the template? And it's the template for the sort of alt protein sector that Chris has been working with. They've got to try and do what, in effect, the chicken industry succeeded in doing.
I think it gives you hope that sort of size and scale of transition is possible. I'm not quite sure. And analysing that way, the reasons for why that change happened is a good place to start as a template.
So Tara, you've been hearing some optimistic thoughts here now, and I guess implicit in your remarks earlier is you must be quite sceptical of the idea of...
JP trying to stir the pot. Oh, that's funny. These guys gave some solutions, but you said you should be suspicious of solutions. It's a very friendly panel overall, but that's funny.
Alt protein, or really anything else being held up as a panacea to these problems?
I'm very sceptical of panaceas, but it doesn't mean that I don't think alternative proteins are a really necessary part of a very multi-pronged approach that we need to take. So I'd kind of like to respond to your chicken point in a minute, but I kind of wanted to zoom.
Yeah, necessary but not sufficient. I agree with that. And that's why you got the pull or the push factors as well as the pull factors, eh?
Wow, because there has been a lot of talk on alt proteins, and as I said, I think they play a role, but we need to just think more broadly about the direction of travel. You've talked a bit about sustainable healthy diets, and I think that's really important, and that means diversification of diets. So if we want one kind of quick fix solution, again, I think they're a bit cheap, but pulses and legumes are really, really good in lots of different ways. They help create more diverse cropping systems, which is good for agriculture. They provide income for farmers, and they're a very nutrient-rich, including fibre-rich source of food in our diets, and they are compatible with the kind of dietary cultures of pretty much people around the world, from soy and tofu through to, lentils and dal, through to rice and peas and whatever. So I do think they're really important. They're not entirely without their problems because, as I say, nothing is. But so if we're focusing on sustainable, healthy diets, we also need to think about interventions that go way beyond the market. So here we're talking about, regulation of pricing incentives and disincentives. And I think we're also talking about things like public procurement, and we're talking about things like standards and expectations of the corporate sector as well. But we're also talking about the food environment that we live in. You've talked about ads on the tube, but most of the ads we see on the tube are for unhealthier and less sustainable foods. So there needs to be more stringent regulation of the food environment. But also, we need to remember that we eat what we eat because we produce what we produce, and there are people who are producing, and they can't be left behind in the process. We talk a lot about just transitions, and I think there are moral arguments for just transitions, that you need to take people with you and you need to support them into more sustainable forms of farming, different forms of food and non-food production and land management. And there are, let's say, more kind of selfish reasons for transitions, which are to do with the fact that you will get a very, very, as we have seen, very strong kickback to moves to shift towards a less animal-intensive future. When it comes to the chicken issue, I'm with you on that. I think it's been incredibly disastrous. We've seen a very, very strong focus on ruminants, so cattle and sheep, because of their very high climate, greenhouse gas producing, because of the methane that they produce, and because they have used large areas of land. But poultry produce, there is the animal welfare crisis, which you are much better able to speak about than me, but they also produce a different set of environmental problems, from huge nitrogen surpluses to ammonia emissions to a reliance on grains and soy, which these are human edible foods that we could be eating directly. They have both direct and indirect effects on land use change. And so I think, and because they are the sort of white meat that no religion can possibly object to, because, hey, they're just chickens, it means that kind of everyone pounces on them, and everyone's eating more and more of them, and because they have you can eat them with a sort of health glow, lean white meat, and you can also, deep fry them. So it's so adaptable that it's gone up and up and up and up, and the cost to welfare, and obviously the Wye Valley and all the environmental problems, don't get the attention they require.
So we forget about the environmental problems caused by the waste from factory farming operations, but also the land footprint of the whole thing, because so much feed has to be grown, protein-rich feed usually, for these animals.
Yeah.
And then the welfare footprint in terms of the terrible lives often that these animals are living in very, very tight confinement. But optimism.
Yes.
So, Chris, it might be good to have you in on this issue of the future for farmers, because it must come up all the time that farmers often hate this old protein stuff because they think this is a vision of the future in which they have no place. This is a product produced in factories, not on farms. What do you see as the future for farmers?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's a really interesting one, because as we see the views of farmers portrayed, it's usually via, I suppose, statements from some agricultural union or another, which is purporting to represent farmers and
NFU
on some level does, but much more often is representing basically big agricultural corporations. The NFU is a great example of this. Very much National Farmers Union in the UK is seen as, the voice of farmers, and have, I think they're the...
Yeah, so true, Jeremy. Yeah. The shared global culture aspect of chicken eating. Absolutely. In a veganism around the world, that's the name of a report that we did with the Vegan Society last year. I think it was published at the start of this year. And if I recall correctly, Israel, where obviously a lot of people are kosher, so you don't have pork and you also don't have beef and dairy in the same meal. So chicken becomes very much the default thing. They have the highest per capita consumption of chicken, and they also have one of the highest rates of veganism. So it's like very much the religious rules of what you can eat and when. And of course they don't have shellfish as well. So it's really like there's a lot of pressure towards chicken, basically, if you're kosher. And then it's it can be halal as well. So yeah, that's a really well. Do you know what else is true though? Vegan food fits in that same category, and that can be a good argument for plant-based institutional pledges. If it's plant-based, it's automatically going to be kosher and halal. So that's a good, good one to have in the pocket as well.
The group that met most with politicians last year and are sort of taken at face value as that. But in fact, most of the members of the NFU, well, actually, I won't say most of the members, but members of the NFU include large agricultural corporations, supermarkets. They're not transparent about their membership or how their kind of voting or decision-making works. And as a result of that, often they are basically representing interests of big agricultural companies, which are often directly opposed to interests of individual farmers. When we look at how this narrative is sort of operationalized, you're right to say that it's usually a case of the good, hardworking farmers, ruddy cheeks, Wellington boots, all the rest of it, are having a hard time, and this is very frequently portrayed as to do with veganism and or alternative proteins, right? We've got to ban cultivated meat in Italy now to protect the farmers and stuff like this. It's actually not the case at all. The number of agricultural jobs in the UK, for example, has indeed gone right down. We've lost about 2/3 of agricultural jobs in the UK since the 60s, and during that same time, our production of meat has almost doubled. So it's not that the farming jobs are going away because people are moving away from meat and eating less meat. That we're producing more meat than ever, but we're doing it with fewer farmers in the chain than ever. And again, that is exactly what you'd expect to see for a food system going towards industrialized systems, factory farms more becoming the norm. Right, there are fewer farming jobs, and life is tough for independent farmers, but it's not because people are moving away from meat and going towards product alternatives. It's largely because of the consolidation of farms into these factory farming systems, and that's been a trend in our food system for many years. And there are opportunities now for farmers in alternative proteins, not only producing, of course, pea protein. The UK is one of Europe's largest producers of pea protein, which is a key ingredient in a lot of alternative proteins, but also now looking at cultivated meat as well. There was an event just last week, I think, or a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands, where they cut the ribbon of the first cultivated meat farm in the Netherlands, which is a working farm that still has livestock, but now is also going to be able to produce cultivated meat from animal cells in the same facility. And there are a lot of advantages to farmers for doing this. One is that it may take I think it's about 3 years for beef cattle to be mature, age of slaughter. And so that is quite an investment and a time commitment from a business perspective for the farm. But to produce cultivated meat, that can be done in like a couple of weeks. So it's a much faster turnaround on the product. You can expect revenue much more quickly than if you're rearing animals. So we're going to see more and more opportunities for farmers to be involved in alternative protein production. But yeah, the main thing I would say is that to challenge this kind of narrative that farmers are having a hard time and that somehow because of veganism or alternative proteins, it's almost entirely to do with factory farms, and that's what's giving us fewer farming jobs than we used to have.
So Tara, I mean, you feel like there must be some disagreement lurking with Chris, I suppose, around you were emphasising in your answer.
Whoops, I was on mute. JB always trying to egg this on. Do you know what? I didn't really detect anything that I disagreed with in Tara's last statement. It had the tone of disagreement at some point, but I didn't think that what either of us was saying was conflicting with the other. But who knows? Maybe let's see.
Legumes like pulses, beans, things like that, where I guess...
Oh yeah, okay, I guess he's trying to make it like alt proteins versus legumes, but I'm not like anti-legumes. She's not anti-alt proteins. I guess we're just emphasizing different things.
Your vision there is relatively unprocessed stuff, just eat the beans. Versus a lot of these companies Chris is talking about, it's exactly about extracting the protein from the peas and the beans so that what is otherwise a relatively indigestible form in which to eat protein becomes this, the ideal is, becomes a more digestible, palatable form. Leads to that whole debate around, is the processing itself a problem? To what extent should we just be eating the beans as they come out of the ground?
I think this is a classic example of a kind of false binary. I think we do need to be throwing everything we can at the problem. I think in an ideal world, and I think we should keep ideals in mind and not forget them, we should be moving towards a system where the production systems are less input intensive, the consumption patterns are less processed, but that we are quite a long way off from that. In the meantime, people are eating a lot of processed food anyway. They might as well be eating processed food that is not meat intensive. So that's where alternative proteins come in and some level of processing come in. Is there anyone in this room who does never eat processed food? It's like you can't live in the real world. So we are where we are, and this plays a role. I think there's also a lot of, the ultra-processed food debate is really, really complex, and there's a lot of kind of false vilification of certain foods there.
What percentage of Indian food consumed in the UK would you think is chicken-based? I'm not sure. I guess they don't also really have pork in Indian food, do they? They do have a lot of beef, though. And dairy... Well, no, they don't have a lot of dairy. Probably a good chunk of it, thinking about it. Probably a good percentage of that is going to be chicken-based. Although you are also always quite sure of getting vegan options at Indian places, so swings and roundabouts.
Which I know Anthony would love to talk about. So I think we need to be doing this, but what I suppose I'm wary of is the idea that yet another techno fix is going to save the day. When we need to be focusing on systems. And, Chris has talked about the fact that, yes, there are opportunities for working with farmers, and I think that's really important. We should be seeking to find as many opportunities, as well as to kind of decouple this farmer identification of what it is to be a farmer from food producing, to open up opportunities for land stewardship, biodiversity conservation as well. So I think there's lots and lots that we can be doing there, but we do need to take this systems perspective rather than saying...
Yeah, again, I agree with that. We're going to free up a bunch of land if we stop producing and consuming so much meat. So we'll be able to, we'll be spoilt for choice, and certainly it's important to have some of that be providing ecological services.
Here's a kind of, we eat burgers, now we can eat plant burgers and everything's fine, because it really isn't.
Anthony, Tara was alluding to your...
Well, wait, what? That's...
There's lots and lots that we can be doing there, but we do need to take this systems perspective rather than saying, here's a kind of, we eat burgers, now we can eat plant burgers and everything's fine, because it really isn't.
I think she's just saying there's more to do, which I agree with. yeah, again, I feel like it sounds like more disagreement than there is disagreement there. But JB was very much prompting that as well.
Anthony, Tara was alluding to your views on these issues. What are your views?
I think, well, I mean, I said about sort of eating, transition from animal protein to plant protein. I don't necessarily think that's entirely alt protein. I probably agree with Tara on that. It's about making people eat more plant protein, but beans and lentils, delicious as they are not always convenient and not always desired by people. So we need to think of other approaches. I think it's important to understand processing and understand what sort of processes stuff is going through, because you can take some a crop, a pea or something like that, and you can convert that into various different things by various different processes. You can concentrate the amount of protein, you can strip some of the starch out of it, but that process does have an impact environmentally. Actually, if you look at the sort of life cycle analysis of a...
It's kind of an annoying point as well. Oh, he's going to talk about life cycle analysis. I wonder if he's saying life cycle analysis. Okay, not to preempt what he's going to say. I have already heard this, of course, I was on the panel. But the main point I would make here is that the plant-based meat is going to be like less than 10% the impact of meat on many environmental metrics. Like, it's not close at all. It's very substantial savings in the environmental outcomes that we care about. So even if beans or pulses or whatever are going to be 1% of the impact of plant-based meat, let's say. I mean, it's not going to be that severe, but even let's say that it was, then you have one option which is 95% better and one option which is 99% better. So again, I would mainly focus on the comparison to meat and animal products and the massive environmental benefits there, rather than the relatively small difference between plant-based meat versus whole foods. Being realistic about how people eat, I think, is helpful.
Pea protein isolate, very heavily hexane extracted and then dried with a huge amount of energy to dry it, and then you turn that into a burger. That has a completely different carbon impact to making something from a pea flour. Has more protein, it's perhaps a bit easier to turn into something like...
But both are vastly, vastly less than meat. I hope this is included in this.
A burger. So, it's all important to understand that process and I do a lot of work on sort of understanding...
I guess it's not. Yeah, that's kind of leaving the taste as if maybe there's a massive environmental problem with plant-based meats, but no, there's... Again, you're looking at, compared to meat, like a 95% reduction in many of the relevant environmental metrics versus a 99%, say. So it's pretty marginal, and the main thing here should be both are massively preferable to meat from animals.
Understanding gentler manufacturing processes with lower environmental impact, because they are incredibly important. It's very easy just to say, if you have some plants, it will be fine. But actually, you look at the sort of total sort of carbon impact of some pea isolates. They're in a similar sort of area to sort of pork and chicken.
No, I don't think that's true. Do we talk about this? I feel like Jonathan Birch maybe disagreed with this. I don't think that's correct at all.
It's way up there. So, it's very important to understand that processing. But in terms of the argument about ultra-processing, I think that's it's an interesting argument. I have views on it. I think, the whole sort of categorization of ultra-processing demonizes many perfectly sensible...
That was surprisingly woke from this guy after hearing what he said a minute ago. I was like, okay, good, he's woke on UPF at least.
Foods, and actually, completely sort of absolves meat and dairy, which are considered unprocessed. And if you go to any sort of events where people are talking about ultra-processed foods, they don't talk about the protein transition, because it's kind of an awkward and difficult thing for them. And, I think that's quite telling, but it's also creating a world where it's difficult to come up with sort of effective solutions. I also feel that people, if we just completely say, the whole ultra processed thing is rubbish, we're ignoring the fact that how many consumers are viewing the food system currently, and that's the language we have to kind of understand and navigate. So I look in my career for less processed solutions. I believe that food, will always be underpinned by farmers growing stuff in fields, if I'm honest. The most of the food that people eat, I think everything else will be around the edges. And actually even a cultivated meat is going to have to be fed on something which is almost certainly going to have to be grown in fields. So there'll always be a role for farmers, but that role will shift as it always has over the last sort of few centuries.
Wonderful. It'd be great at this point to take questions from the audience. So we've heard important points of similarity across the panel, about the deep problems in our food system, the urgent need for quite profound reforms. It seems like everyone is in agreement about that, but then some really interesting differences in emphasis around the role of relatively processed products versus eating more pulses and beans straight out of the ground, and about the different visions of what the role for farmers is in the future of food. If everyone is saying there's got to be some changes in what they're doing, there's often leads to the farming community feeling quite besieged.
I'm going to speed this up a bit because I'm going to go eat after this.
I suppose. Nonetheless, we're totally reliant on farming for food, and some interesting differences of perspective on that. So if you have a question, please put your hand up, and we'll also take some questions from online as well. What we'll do is we'll take 3 questions at once, just so that we get more questions in total. And let's start in the front row here.
Hello. In the food sector, if it's true that significant change is needed to meet environmental and public health targets or objectives, what is it, does the panel think, that it will take for meaningful legislation to impact, especially in relation to, say, transport or energy, where it's relatively draconian by comparison? I've heard about why it doesn't, big vote loser, for example, but what's the tipping point? What will it take?
Great, and let's take 3. So there was another one from the front row there.
You know what? I'm going to sack off the Q&A. I do actually have there is actually some good band in the Q&A, so maybe I'll watch this another time. In fact, I will watch this another time. But for now, I'm going to call it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody who's been here. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Oppenheimer, Tristan King. Thank you, Bretta. Bandit, VPM was here. Scurvidur was here. Appreciate you all being here. Victor's, my pal Victor's as well. Yeah, I appreciate you, Jeremy. Thank you. I will stream again probably next week. And I actually have a couple of pretty good interviews booked in over the next few weeks. So I won't say too much about that now, but there's some good content coming. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you being here with me, and I will see you guys next stream. Take it easy. Cheers.